at 5:34. We will call the select board meeting to order. If you can join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And tonight we are here with the Finance Committee and with the West Street Building Committee to talk about the charge of what is going to happen before the ballot. So Glenn was not able to attend the meeting prior that we had a discussion about it. So he kind of relied on Dave and myself as to whether or not there was going to be enough time to roll out the information that the taxpayers would need to know for option B and C. So that was why we called the meeting tonight, was to discuss what's going to happen before the ballot, how many times we're going to have an informational meeting, or you guys are able to have an informational meeting, and how we're going to get the information out to the taxpayers so they know what they're voting on. And they know that option A is now off the table since it was voted down at the last special town meeting. And then Glenn also brought up some of the, and so did Dave, some of the other requests that were on the town meeting floor. Is there a way that the West Street Building Committee can look into, if we do raise the building for the 2.5 million, can there be a 5,000 square foot structure built as a option? And then how much would that cost? That was one of the requests that Dave had mentioned.
Is that a module or?
So one of the ones was to look into module and the other one was just to look into construction. So not so much just building to code, building ADA compliance, no stairs, just one level, 5,000 square foot building to keep it underneath the range for sprinkler system. And I think you had mentioned another option. I'm sorry.
Can I ask a clarifying question on that? The committee, to speak on their behalf, but the committee has done a lot of legwork, and a 5,000 square foot structure would not be of adequate size to address the program for either the senior center or municipal offices. So is the intent with the 5,000 square foot building to provide some relief, and it's a level only to avoid putting sprinklers in the building? Like, what is the magic of the 5,000 square feet? Because it would appear at face value, at least to my eyes, that it will be inadequate to address your needs. So I'm trying to understand where that comes from.
It comes down to looking at options. And I guess, the town owns this building here. So if there was an option to make all the town offices inside this building and maybe move the senior center to a different location. And I just say that because we want to look at different options. One thing we know is that the annex building, it's going to come to an end. And I mean, so we have to find a spot for the town offices. And, we can find temporary solutions, but that's what they're going to be, is a temporary solution. But we need to have something to plan for the future to move forward. And that's what I'm saying. Listening at town meeting, a lot of things were being put out there, a lot of different feelings and people talking about different things. And my concern just being on the select board is, okay, this does not pass the ballot question. Where does that leave us? What other options do we have? Because we know eventually down the road that, we have to find town offices. We have to find a location. We have to have something in place. So again, that's why I'm saying is that what are our options? That's why I want to hear about, I know we talked about before about the other two options, and it didn't seem as feasible or as beneficial, I would say, as the third option that we brought to the town floor. But again, if these aren't our options, then what are our options moving forward?
Well, if I may, years ago, the select board assembled a committee to look at buildings, 2 7,000 square foot buildings, to avoid putting in a sprinkler system. And that was shot down. It wasn't shot down by the voters, but it was shot down by the select board. If you guys wanted another option. We want us to look at the West Street. So we already know what that kind of option looks like. And even, and the two 7,000 square foot buildings still today would be inadequate space-wise, based on our needs assessment.
So I guess that we get to the point
I
is,
mean, you get a, just let me finish it. At town meeting, with all due respect, you get a lot of people shooting from the hip with no background, no experience on what this committee's been through or the previous committee. So say this, shooting from the hip to say, why don't we just put up 5,000 square foot? Because it's not adequate. If we're going to do something, let's do it right. This situation that we're in right now was supposed to be a temporary solution because we moved out of Kellogg Hall based on an issue with having to renovate the building and not meeting the public water supply. So this building was purchased as a temporary solution. And right now, with the chart, or the first charge we were given, which was option A, B and C is next, and then I think there's some solutions or some answers to some of the shoot from the hip questions that came out of town meeting. I mean, it's not, to me, it doesn't make sense to put up a 5,000 square foot building to avoid a sprinkler system, another temporary solution, and still not meet the needs of our officers.
I think that was just more suggestions to say like, okay, let's keep our mind open. What are the possibilities to move forward? And again, we only have, eventually, we're going to have so much money to budget for what it may be, and we may not get everything that we want. That may not be feasible, just because we don't have the money to spend it that way. So there might have to be, some parts where we just don't get. And my concern about this building is people talk about, well, we'll just sell this building. That sounds great. What's out there for someone to buy this building? What is this? Is there a need for a building like this for someone to use? That's my question too. What's the market value? How valuable is this building to the market right now?
Do you have a assessment that was done?
I understand the assessment being it's a market value, but is there a need for someone to buy a building like this?
Yeah, that you don't.
No, but
That's one of those questions you just can't answer.
no, and I get that, Jim, but that's a concern for the future, that if this building stays on as a town property, then town can't sell it for 3, 4, 5 years. We're looking at the economy moving forward, and predictions aren't the best in the world right now. So that's a concern moving forward. All right, so now the town has this building, does it end up staying empty for a while? I'm just trying to think of the decisions that we're trying to make now is going to obviously have an impact on the future. And I definitely love to see West Street work. It's a building. It's got all the, if you will, the bones that it needs to have. I think it's definitely feasible and viable. It's just that what can we do with the building? That's talking about the second and third option is what I want to hear, and I know I'm sure the public wants to hear as well. And I know I heard part of it previously as well. But again, just sitting on the select board, just have where are we going to go if this is an option for us? Because everybody's saying, well, if this doesn't work, what's next? And I got to ask that, what is next? Because we're told that the annex building, that the rent's going to double. They may not even let us stay there another year. They're going to say, no, we're selling the property. Good luck. I just say that. Who knows? We don't have control over that.
Lynn, do you know what the square footage is at the annex? I know it's not an adequate space for them right now, but they are using it. I'm curious what their square footage is
Oh,
now.
the annex. I
Yeah.
think it's a, hold on, so this-
So, based on existing measurements that I took of their spaces on their own, they have. Quick math.
I have the,
Unless you have it,
I do
But-
want to find it.
but otherwise I can add these up.
The annex is 20, we're in 2,300 square feet, approximately. It's 2324. That's the town clerk, tax collector, board of health, board of assessors.
Yeah.
Carnegie is 2182. And that's both floors, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I would think it's both, yeah.
And here, where we're sitting, is 6,200.
You have assessors, you said Board of Health, tax collector, town
Town
clerk.
Yep.
So, while she's writing, Glenn, let's just say 5,000 is adequate for us, and we're gonna build new. Well, we can estimate that, or we know that it's about $1,000 per square foot to build new. We also know we'd have to abate and raise, level. So when you add all those costs into building a building that's smaller than what we currently are using, it comes out to the same price as renovating West Street.
So I'm not against renovating West Street.
No, I'm just
I'm
giving
in
you
favor.
facts. I don't.
No, and that's what I'm saying, that if this doesn't pass, what are our options? Because again, we have to have, I guess what I'm saying is if this doesn't pass at the ballot box, where do we go from there? Is that, it's not a viable solution at that point,
Well, I guess that has to be said. We
Yeah.
don't have a solution if it doesn't pass. But the townspeople have to know that. We don't have the annex. We can't rely on the annex. The Carnegie's too small. Just here is available.
Are there any other issues with the Carnegie? To occupy that building on a full-time basis?
I have not been in that building, but I understand from what you've told me before, there's an issue with the well and water supply for the public water use. As a public water supply, in terms of its distance from.
Chris would be able to tell us because Jeremy and Chris work out of there right now as the,
That did have a registered public water supply
did.
when the library was there.
Yeah.
It was a non-transient water supply,
Okay.
okay? We are currently having our water operator look at it to see if, say, we move 3 of the offices there, an additional 5 employees. Will those 3 offices you move there generate more foot traffic on a daily basis to exceed the 25 people that a non-transient is allowed to operate at? Okay? We're currently looking at that. So to say that the public water supply, the well issue is an issue with moving offices there, I would not say that at this point in time until we hear from our water operator.
It's laying a cap on how much you can move.
Yes. How many people can be on there on a daily basis?
so not at one time, just in and out daily.
Well, they say 25 people at one time.
Okay.
That's what they use. Now, say you move the collector's office up there. You'll have a large crowd up there when the quarterly tax bills are issued, when the excise bills are issued, and when the sewer bills are issued. But will that be enough generation of additional people to affect it being a non-transient? That's what we don't know.
So either or, it's a limited use.
Potentially.
To figure that out, you have to find out what the foot traffic is. The annex building gets to kind of take a look at a period of time to see what the foot traffic is in and out.
So Chris, I have assessors, Board of Health, tax collector, town clerk, building maintenance, town administrator, treasurer, building commissioner, town accountant, and COA and director. Am I forgetting anyone else that needs to be in those, that needs a home? So we're gonna put them all in one building.
Planning board, right?
They
Conservation.
do meetings, right? So they
Well,
would
then
leave
you
their
can
meetings.
eliminate essentially some of your larger meeting rooms.
Okay.
So where are you gonna meet? If you say you start cutting up this place,
Yep.
you're gonna lose a large space to be used for various activities or meetings. okay? If you use the top floor of the Carnegie for 3 offices, you're gonna lose a large meeting space that is used by Concom and planning. Okay, those are the considerations you have to take into account also, because we don't have any alternate place unless we start using the school for large meetings for just boards. And I don't think the school is gonna put up with that for too long, to be honest with you.
Well, any nonprofit in Granby can use the school, they don't charge you for it.
But again, if we start using the school for all our departmental meetings, large board meetings, I think you're gonna find some pushback.
Goes back to where we started, what was our solution to a problem that we have now and moving forward?
I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
It sounds, but I want to make sure that we're now okay with something other than one building to hold all municipal offices, right?
I think we're just trying to look at our
I think
options
we're
and
just trying
figure
to
it
look at
out.
options, that's what I'm saying, I'm just saying, this isn't worked the way we hope it to
Right.
work, it doesn't come true, then what are our options? We're still faced with the same problem.
So that would be acceptable, though, to, if necessary, to keep the cost down to.
Well, yeah, I mean, eventually, we have employees of the town in a building now that eventually is not to be able for us to use. That's a fact.
The other question I have is this. We've got 2,300 square feet over there at the annex and 6,200 here, a little over 8,500 square feet. And you seem to say that you were preparing 17,000 square feet for the town offices.
No, it's not 17,000 for town offices. In terms of the program as is, because the total number includes the COA space and shared space, which includes the gym and the cafeteria spaces, which would be flex spaces allowing for more large meeting spaces. But in terms of the town offices alone, so trying to consolidate all of the offices and their individual smaller meeting rooms, file storage, bathrooms and break rooms, etc., the necessary accessory spaces for their use, that total is somewhere between, if we do it as tight as possible, we're probably around 9,500 square feet, up to somewhere in the realm of 10,300.
Is that what was requested, or is that what you verified as being?
That's been verified through the programming. So what was actually requested earlier on in terms of what was given to us was roughly
Just office space,
for
not,
just office space, not including the actual shared amenities. That was around 6,100 square feet. What was confirmed via programming in terms of just office space, so not shared amenities like storage, break room, bathrooms, circulation, is 4,500 square feet. So compared to the ask of the want versus the program working through industry standard and numbers of people and how many workstations we're accommodating and the use that they are then providing to the public, we've gone through that legwork.
So you are in agreement with them that instead of the 2,300 square feet now, that they should have 4,600?
That's inclusive of not just what's in the annex, but also what's upstairs here.
And the
COA.
boards and committees.
And boards and committees. This doesn't include any of the program related to the COA. So if we only want to provide town hall, i.e. all of the offices in a singular building, that's somewhere in the realm of 9,500 to 10,500 square feet. If we wanted to relocate the annex space, because I was looking at this and crunching some numbers while we were talking earlier, based on those departments, the number of people they have, trying to build an accessibility and the amenities and storage, which they don't have. Right now, they're roughly around 2,300 square feet. We'd probably be closer to 4,000 to accommodate what they need. There's a certain amount of economy that can happen in terms of shared bathrooms, shared break rooms, shared printer facilities, shared storage, all of these things that can be shared, the more we can put into a singular building. Now, granted, if we want to keep it smaller and only do a smaller building, yeah, if you wanted to put in the 5,000 square foot building in order to replace annex, and maybe then you get a smaller or more intermediate sized meeting room as part of that, that's an option, but that's something that can be considered.
But it seems to me that, that there are two things to be looked at. One is to move everybody in the annex in here. This should be plenty big with some adjustments. Just whatever they would like, they're operating daily for how many years? 10 years, 2,300 square feet. This should be plenty of room for them. And then you'd be then asking the question, how do we accommodate the council on aging? What do we need to have to accommodate the council on aging?
John, let me interrupt for a minute. When you move that many more people in here, we'd have to do an assessment to see if the facilities would support additional staff. You have to have so many bathrooms per occupant. And from what I can tell, what I see there's not a lot there. But so just to say move them in here, it's not just to move in here. There's construction.
No, I don't think of this as a zero cost to move them in here. It's not $1,000 a square foot to move them in here. The other option would be to figure out just what to do with the people in the annex now and the other thing. But if you could move everybody into here, then in one sense, you've got virtually all the town offices, all the operating offices in one spot. And then you'd be asking, what can we do for the council on aging? And is there a solution for the council on aging? And that is, say, is there a way to renovate just enough space over there for the council on aging?
Oh, over at West Street?
Yeah. I'm not suggesting that you do anything other than ask that question and make sure there are answers to that, because I know that those are going to be the kind of questions that are asked whenever this project comes up next to the public.
Well, like you said too, John, could we do a 5,000 square foot building over there for just the COA? So on slab, on grade, the well's working, right? Did it pass, did the septic pass the Title V? Or has none of that? It did, right? So the septic's good, the well's good, so we wouldn't have any of those extra costs. Right now, the COA is sharing their space with the TA, the building commissioner, the treasurer, right? And they have 6,200 square feet here. So we could get them all here for town offices and then just build a COA over there.
Why wouldn't you do the opposite and build?
You could, but I'm saying if we're saying five,
Over there, renovate West Street, close off the cafeteria, gym,
Yeah.
and the other 22,000 square feet.
Option C.
Option
Option
C,
C.
no abatement. And you can get everybody in that building, municipal office-wise.
yeah,
And then
For,
then put this on the market. And if this sells,
then,
then that could be your
and
other.
how much was it?
so if you,
Extra.
because last time we met,
Yeah,
Dave was very gung-ho on abating the whole building.
yep,
Option C with no abatement, no COA, no cafeteria, gym, would be total ask to the town, or do you want, the total renovation cost would be about 10.6 million. Then you subtracted 5.6 that we've already been given. The 2 million that comes out of stabilization, and the total ask to the town would be about 3 million.
So I guess it's just, to me, it's, I think, more feasible for people to look at. But the one thing I like about West Street building is that it has potential for the future. There's space that is there. We're not looking for an end all for, hey, 10 years, 20 years on it. Well, the town of Granby's been around for hundreds of years to go. So, it's planning for the future. not 5 years, not 10 years, we're talking 30, 40, 50 years down the road. That hopefully that building will accommodate people well up, or probably all of us in this room are not here anymore. So that's the part that I like about the North Street building. We can start off at a certain point and say, okay, we're able to use the building for this particular reason. It's accommodating what we need now. 5 years down the road, people might say, you know what, okay, we're looking to move forward and adding on some different things or doing this, doing that. But we already, we have that space, we have the building. So that's kind of what I'm looking at is, where do we get ourselves, at least to start? So we can plan for the future as well. We have a starting point to do what we want to do, but we're able to continue that path that we want to stay on.
With that being said, then raising it and building a 5,000 square foot structure should be off the table.
Yeah.
I mean, that has to come, that has to come from the select board saying, we think that this building is the way to go, to keep it, and you have to tell the public why, because there's potential there. It may cost some money, but there's potential there for the next 50 years to use this first 10,000 square feet, and then maybe more, and then more up to 44.
But I think, personally, I think getting rid of the abatement and doors and windows for $1 million is foolish. Because when we looked at the numbers that Steve gave us last, an average home for the 4 million was what, $87 a year?
For the 5 million asked for option B,
For option C.
for option C.
Abated.
Option C abated was 4.2 million, and
And
that,
the average home was what?
hold on. For the median household, the average home was 400,000, so that would be a little more than 200 if it's 25 years.
I thought you had different numbers, because I thought last time we were looking at it was like $90.
Oh, am I looking at old numbers? Sorry.
Yeah,
I am.
that was less.
It was like $90.
I have it right here. Sorry. So 4.2 million for a house that a mean, that's 350, would be $117.
So you're looking at about a
If you're
$30.
at 450,
So
you're
you're
at
looking at about a $30 a year difference for the mean house for dropping $1 million.
So the one thing to consider though is the number you have for the total ask for option C right now. That separate swag you have there on abatement is for the other half of the building, the 1944 section.
Oh, and abating the COA.
So the COA area is currently within that option C number being abated. So we'd have to go back, we can do that number crunch.
Should I understand what you're saying? So our option C originally was not moving its COA in,
But
but
prepping,
prepping it for future. And prepping it would mean abating the cafeteria, abating those 2 rooms on the other side for the COA, and the gym, and the kitchen.
And replacing the
well, and replacing
And
windows.
replacing
So there's, exactly, so there's a fairly good cost there. Granted, in the grand scheme of things, is it another $1 million? Probably not, but, is it in the realm of maybe another $500,000? Probably, that we could potentially pull back out again, if that's something we even want to consider.
Could you just lay out what option C is then for us as of right now?
Currently.
Yeah.
As of
currently.
right now.
Yes.
Option C would be municipal offices only, with abatement of the cafeteria, gym, and COA rooms,
And
and new
then,
windows
yep, and
in those-
windows and doors.
in all those areas.
Well, for the $4 million ask, it's abating the entire building.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, haven't gotten her yet.
Oh.
Yeah, because she's waiting. And then in addition, abating the whole building with new windows.
Which means the building is, the building
Correct.
that's not occupied, it's shell space and it's prep and it's ready. It's ready to go. It's
Right.
ready to go.
Ready for you to renovate.
Which makes sense.
So that's
Built
4.2.
on the spring.
But that means,
Built on the heating system.
that means there'll be a wall, a firewall. No gym, no cafeteria, no kitchen, just municipal offices.
But that gives us the ability.
Yeah, for
to-
future.
to-
renovation.
future,
Right.
yeah.
That's why I'm clear that
Yeah.
you won't be using that cafeteria for voting, or you won't be using the cafeteria for meetings.
Or in the gymnasium, if someone needs to borrow it or whatever program, can't be borrowed. It's gonna be all closed off.
Right. Which is understandable, but again, the thought process is how do we get all the town offices under one roof, if you will, and still have the council on aging. That, to me, it makes that possible, but also planning for the future. Because if you prep the building, there's less work, and obviously it's, I would say, more cost effective or efficient now to prep the building than it would to do that kind of work 5 years from now. So at least we're starting, and then we kind of know we're in the future. You can start knocking things off a little bit here or there if you want it. Hey, well, now we want to do the gym, or we want to do this, we want to do that. What's that going to cost down the road?
Well, so that's what Dave and Crystal talked about at the meeting that you were absent at. That's what they agreed
Yeah.
to. They said, well, let's go to B first, and then if that fails, go to C with full abatement.
But to roll out the information, I think it might be hard, like you were saying at our last meeting, if we roll out 2 options. Is that it's going to be confusing on what we're asking them to vote on at the ballot.
I think
So,
But I think the easiest thing is to say, this is what the option we're wanting to move forward with. This is the best option that we have. Because, and I've heard from people that if it doesn't fail at the ballot box, well, what's your intention? Bring it back to the town meeting? How many times are you gonna try this?
Well, if it doesn't fail at the ballot box, it will be at town meeting because appropriations have to be made if it passed. And then the town has one more decision to make as to whether or not they appropriate.
No, I'm saying if it doesn't pass at the ballot box, and people are saying, well, then what, just gonna keep it, bringing it back till it passes?
well, eventually you'll probably have to bring it
We're
back.
not bringing it back. We're bringing back a whole different option.
Yeah.
That's what they
You
don't.
heard them. Although we had the 3 options, they denied the option A, so now we're presenting B. And if B doesn't work, then C.
Well,
That's the way I would look at
But
it.
that's what I'm saying, is that from what people are saying, I think we decide if C
Or B.
meets, or B, if, well, C meets what we just talked about, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I
Yes.
think B would prep for this, or B would be the
B would
COA.
have
B
the
has
We
it,
don't
right?
have everybody.
No, C has the prep.
C would have COA actually move into the space.
B does.
Yeah.
B,
Okay.
yeah. Whereas C,
And
they're
that's,
not. in
and
the
that's how much more money?
$2 million bucks.
$2 million difference.
So 6.2 to get everybody in there. And full abatement of the building. Or 4.2 to do full abatement of the building, no COA in there. Just-
I just say, I think that the 4.2 is more that the town may look to spend. And
And so 4.2 would cost someone $117, the mean house, versus 6.2 was $174.
which doesn't seem like a lot, but to some people, it makes a difference what they want to spend. And I hear that. I mean, again, this is all great. This is all talking how we all feel, but if it doesn't pass the ballot box, where are we? We're faced with a decision that we're gonna find a solution.
Then the next solution would be C.
And
And,
then,
and the reason why I'm hard on that is because the operational costs that you're gonna be saving, I'll bet you it's, Chris will probably have, someone's gonna have to do a cost benefit analysis, but you're not plowing this place, you're not heating it, everything's getting consolidated, you're saving on labor, equipment,
sewage or
Well,
septic.
you know, all that.
As long as we own it, we still gotta
$50,000.
plow it, we still gotta heat it until we don't own it anymore.
Well,
So, but there's still a cost.
yeah.
Did you price out the option of moving just the council on aging and doing minimum abatement?
To West Street?
Yeah.
Well, that was never really,
No, that was.
no one, that was an option that we were told to look at.
Well, I know, that's what I'm asking, is that you have no idea then what it would cost to move just the council?
If you look at the relative square footage, right? We had roughly 22,000 square feet that we were renovating, and it was roughly half and half. So for $16 million, you could do all of it, right? For 10, you could do half of it, and it would probably be 6 and 6 to try to do them separately. Right? So just round numbers, square footage wise, it's probably half and half.
But why would the council on aging need 11,000 square feet? They're in maybe 4 here, including
Because they don't have upstairs.
They don't have the stairs. So they're just, I mean, you can see.
Well, the council of aging was getting 2 particular rooms that were theirs, and the rest of the spaces were shared spaces. So,
And again, the intent with the shared spaces was to provide a place for the community to do large person number events like voting without doing that function currently in a school. So we were taking advantage of the gym and the cafeteria as 2 very large spaces that were shared between the municipal offices and the senior center as functional space that the town could utilize.
And this sounds to me like a very nice to have, and I agree. This makes a lot of sense. But we've got a couple of concerns. One is that it's May 19th. How much is going to change in the economy to make people feel very confident about the next 4 years? Anybody got a guess? I would say nothing. So it's going to be very, very hard to get the May 19th bill passed. If you're going to do an all-out push to get the May 19th bill passed, you've got to somehow figure out on an absolute minimum cost to get done what we need to get done. Now, some additional meeting space might be okay, but when thinking right here, upstairs, it's used for some meetings of small groups, finance committee is used, and so on. This floor is used for meetings, right, of all sorts of kinds. Why couldn't the equivalent of this floor be used for meetings over there in the school building in West Street?
Okay, so we looked at all that, and to do what you're saying would be, because we've got office space here, the other main office space, COA office space here, the other main office space, this is like shelf space already. So to say, let's take this piece and move it here, build this out, you're talking about an expense that's over here. You follow what I'm saying? Just to move that over here, the expense to build those offices inside the,
No, we wouldn't build any other offices. You'd have just the council on aging over there, no other office. The other, we've got this building here, and we've got the annexes. So the library is 2 big buildings.
What we learned during our programming process with the Council of Aging is there are a lot of activities that they provide that are somewhat personal in nature and that occur
And the
really
In an
between
enclosed office.
an enclosed office or a smaller space. So to just drop them into a large space is not going to work for some of the services that they provide to the community. It would have to be, and I'm not saying it has to be fully fitted out, but there would have to be some private spaces that were provided in order to suit the needs of the services that they provide, which were developed in the program. And I'm not trying to be an obstructionist, I'm just trying to look at it from the full perspective of providing the services or enhancing or equaling the services that they're providing to the community now and balancing that with the space that's available. And part of what we did for the bigger picture of looking at the school in full was to very much work within the sort of taking what we're getting from the school and not spending money unnecessarily moving partition walls that exist in order to make a space 10% smaller, because that's what the program dictated. We recognize that it would be far more economical to leave that wall and push and pull on the various departments to put them in the space that made the most sense for the program that they needed without modifying the building any more than absolutely necessary. So that's sort of why there's a little bit of an economy of scale, if you will. Yes, we can nail this square footage to exactly what the program says. You're probably going to spend more money to get it. And I know that seems a little bit counterintuitive, but until you look at the whole building and the way that it lays out and where all the offices fit in the puzzle, It's kind of like Tetris. We put everybody into the spaces that best suited their needs. Some are a little bigger, some are a little smaller, but we were able to avoid moving partition walls unnecessarily in order to get there. So that was part of the push and pull that we did and kind of where everybody landed where they are.
Well, people are not in space now that they think they need. So, I'm not dismissing that as an argument.
Understand.
It's just that I'm thinking that it's going to be very, 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 very difficult to get a bill passed, to get a ballot passed on the 19th. And it's going to take an extraordinary effort, I think, to get the bill passed on the 19th. And an extraordinary effort that says, well, we really need to accommodate this and we really need to accommodate that. That's not going to be viewed as an extraordinary effort. It just won't. Because people will ask the same questions that, we've been thinking about.
So we've had meetings, on meetings, on meetings, and we're gonna have more meetings. I mean, if people want to be informed, we're gonna have meetings.
Right.
I don't know what else,
I don't know what you can do either. I mean, that's part of the problem. It's just that
Well,
the
I think
idea,
getting some support would be the first thing, honestly.
well,
We got no support right now. All of a sudden, you guys are sending off emails, you're standing up there, we're baffled when you guys stood up at the town meeting and said you don't support this. We were shocked.
but that's because, why it's because it tripled the cost. And
You sat there at the informational meeting and said it was a good idea. You were here, and you said it was a good idea.
And I prefaced my information I sent out to you with that same idea, that I like the idea of having all the municipal offices together. I think that, and you look at a town, it helps identify the town, it helps the town identify it with something that says, all right, see, this is Granby. Here we are, we're all right here. It's the way that a business should be conducted in a town. But the cost is the thing that overwhelmed us, and in particular, there's one thing which we haven't really talked about yet, but Bob looked at some work. I don't know if you had a chance to read what he did. And there are some extraordinary expenses this year compared to what budgets have been in the past. The price of health insurance is skyrocketing. The schools have quite a bit of money that they're asking for, and something that they're not really, I don't know if they're completely aware of, but there was a change in calculation which was not passed on to them for what town services cost the school. And that's another $300,000 a year that they're going to be gifted at this stage. The stabilization funds are going to be down to close to zero. We're no longer going to be in a position where we can say, all right, we've set our budget in springtime, expecting that come next February, we're going to get free cash certified $1.5 million. I think those days are gone. It's going to be won't be quite as much shock as when we lost the $2 million coming in a year from the landfill, but it's going to be a big shock because right now we do the budget in two pieces. We do for the spring meeting, and then we do the budget again for the following spring for stuff that we didn't want to commit the money to in the first meeting. But we're not going to have that money anymore. So if we can't get something done to move the offices, the annex, something that the people will say, okay, you've done your best, this is the minimum amount that we're going to have to raise money, I don't think there's a ghost of a chance of passing. And it was just too much money. It was just too much money.
What you're referring to again at the meeting is option A.
Right.
Okay, option A is off the table. We've already discussed it, the town voted down, so it's no longer the 15, the 3 times as much. That option is gone.
Right.
So another thing I wanted to bring back is you were talking about we no longer have the landfill, correct? We knew that back in 2000 and something. That's why the town back then decided we need to do something now and plan ourselves for the future because we anticipated this occurring. I remember being at that meeting and we said, you know what's the easiest one for us to start with? And they're like, oh, let's do DPW. That was an easy building, we start working on that. So we started that in 2003 because we knew money would be coming from the landfill. We knew it was coming. We knew way back then, so we started preparing our future plan for this town back then, saying, let's do DPW. After DPW, what department's next? Safety. So we did police and fire and did a safety complex. That was a huge chunk, but we also knew it needed to be done. Okay, what came after that? The next one after that, thank goodness for library doing all its work. The library was the next hit that we did. We took care of public, use for the library. Again, a town department took care of that. What is next after that? Oh, you know what? We need a new elementary school. Boom, another big ticket. We did that because we anticipated back then this was going to occur. And we also anticipated at one point we will have to increase taxes in order to get what we need for the town itself to function. And this is one of our last ones, honestly, is to do the rest of the department offices and then COA. That's the reason why we came up with option A, B, and C. We anticipated this long time ago that this would occur because you said we'll no longer have the landfill, the taxes will be increasing because we still need to function as a town. So this was our next option because after this, the town really doesn't need a large number that we can afford, which unfortunately, the high school is a huge number. That's something we have to work for in the plans with the future and the state and everything else. But right now, this was our last hurdle of our plan that started back in 2000. Because I remember, you've been on the finance committee as long as I've been around. And that's one of the things you always mention. You got to prepare for the town when we lose the landfill. And we started back then doing each department, taking care of this, this was our last one. Then what else big do we actually need to take care of? Because we have a building that's going to last 50, 80 years. Everybody's going to be in it. It's going to be taken care of. The town doesn't have to spend extra money again to do another large project for all town departments. We started that planning. I don't know why it disappeared, because I remember we started back then, and that's why we started DPW, and this is where we're at now. These are the last departments we have to take care of for this town to function as a town. So that's just...
Actually, it was discussed back in 2010 because I have the paperwork of putting offices into West Street Building. And that fell to the wayside. And then the next committee came up in 2018 and that their proposal fell to the wayside. And now we're back here again. But this has been kicked around since 2010.
Yeah, I don't think anybody disagrees that we need this. It's not a want, it's a need. It's just the leaders of our community need to make a decision and strategize about what option we should go for. Tearing the building down, I'm dead set against it, because once it's gone, it's gone. There's no future for growth. We're stuck with a 5,000 square foot building. That number came out of, I don't know where.
They're just tell us
I
what
don't
happens.
No idea. Recognize Jim for some reason.
So I think tonight's decision is that if, so what's our next option? It's either B or C. If you want to go right to C, then, then fine.
Except
Go right to C. Although for me, for a lousy, whatever it is a year,
well, the COA has already been voicing, if you want a COA, you have to come out and vote.
The chief and I met with the COA board last week, was it?
Yep.
I think it was last week.
They're talking about how they're gonna get signs printed. They're telling their constituents, they're putting a big push.
What was the market value in this building? What was it assessed at?
Between 6 and 7, I'll say 100,000.
Yep. I think 676 to 790 maybe.
So I just have some clarifying questions, Lynn, before we move forward. So option C was 4.2 million on top of the 5.7, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And then option B was 6.2 on top of the 5.7.
yes.
We're taking $2 million out of stabilization on both of those.
Okay. One from capital and one from free cash.
Correct.
Okay.
That's how
And
we
then-
got 4.2 and 6.
Yeah.
And then,
I'm sorry, what did you
We
say?
got the 4.2 and 6.2 with that 2 million, $1 million from each.
Yep, they were
so 5.7 plus the 2, so 7
5.8
point,
minus 2,
okay,
total asset 6.2. The bond would be 6.2 million.
okay.
And there's room in there for overruns, right, for cost.
Yes, we have contingencies built in. And the other piece that can be considered, which was originally what we were talking about with, when we left the select board meeting back in February, was the abatement of the other part of the building that's going to be unoccupied. It's easy enough, let's just have that as an alternate that you can accept if it all falls within our budget. If it doesn't, that's 1.3 additional, for lack of a better term, contingency to allow for overrun in the bid.
That would be abatement of that part as well as windows. That would be taken off if need be.
Correct.
Well, just to be clear, we would set the bid document up that work was an ad alternate.
Okay.
And it would be, you would have the election at the time of the bid to take that work and scope of the project if the remainder of the project came in favorably. And if it didn't, then you would have the right to reject it or not accept the alternate. And that scope would remain outside of the project. So we'd only be renovating and abating the work of the municipal
And COA.
and COA. Yes. Sorry.
And my other question was the water coming in, that wasn't part of this plan, so how are we gonna mitigate that and how much is that gonna cost?
So water coming in, we've been talking about looking at, we're investigating the drain that's out there, and on there are two ways to deal with it. There's one which is the more expensive. If we find that the drain isn't clogged that's in that courtyard, that's something we're looking into. One would be the more expensive, but the belt and suspenders option would be to dig down outside that wall, put in a foundation drain, tie that into your stormwater system, because that'll move water away from the wall. Based on the fact that we're only getting water through the wall as opposed to through the floor, we don't think that's as much of an issue. So another way to do it, which granted is going to be more reliant on maintenance in terms of keeping it up, is you can do an interior waterproof coating on the inside face of that wall as well.
I would strongly recommend the first option
As would
rather
I.
than the second.
As would I. Yeah, going on the outside, because
Divert the water away from.
because the other option, the water is still getting into the meat of the wall. It's just stopped at that inner coating.
And that cost isn't.
It's not built in right now.
So what would be a cost on something like that? If that, a rough estimate, and you get something that's not planned for that may need to be done. It does need to be done.
Does need to be.
Honestly, it would have to be investigated, because you're talking about drainage in an interior courtyard, and we don't know where that drainage is currently piped. If it's piped to the outside of the building already, and that pipe is intact and will free flow, it'll be a relatively inexpensive endeavor. If we're talking about, capturing the water and pumping it out, to get it over, over the building and back out to the other side, that's obviously a more costly endeavor, but it requires some more study on our side.
Right.
So what is the contingency amount that's built in the factor?
I think we built 10% contingency into the project, and inclusive of that, in addition to that 10% contingency to deal with change orders during construction, there is also contingency within the design side of the equation for things like this drainage that come up that we need to address as part of the scope of the project. So we're at such an early stage, there's both contingency money in the design to account for things that come up and are identified during the design process, as well as separate money that's set aside for contingency that occurs during construction for the inevitable change orders that present themselves with any renovation project.
Just so the board's aware too, we basically pushed pause. These guys haven't really been doing any investigating.
Right.
So we don't spend any more money until we know where we're going.
Question for finance. If the 5.6 that's already been appropriated was appropriated, and then the other 2 million's coming out of free cash.
Stabilization.
Stabilization funds. So that's basically all the extra that we're asking for as far as an annual budget. So what does the town put aside every year? Average. That goes into stabilization
We put $1 million in stabilization over the last 5 years
over the last 5 years.
and taken some out.
And
I think every town meeting, we take some out because of different items that various departments want.
Well, and also, some money is basically committed, though you can't actually commit ahead of time, to pay off loans that were taken for other things. So, you know, the proposal was presented to buy this piece of equipment. Funding would be coming from available cash in future years, but the intention was to take it out of the stabilization fund, and that's what happens. There's a large money that comes out to pay for the principal and interest on past loans and back.
so to clarify, if the town agrees to do that, take the 2 million that's sitting in stabilization, the rest of it comes from the override, then the project doesn't affect, after that 2 million, the project doesn't affect your budget, your annual.
Well, money's still got to be used to pay off the loans.
Well, that comes from,
The override.
No, the loans that are already in existence that we're using stabilization money to pay for this year's installment payment.
but after that, after we take the 2 million, if we take the 2 million, it doesn't affect what you're putting aside each year to go into, from taxes each year, that goes into stabilization. So if you raise $1 million every 5,
Yeah, but that's what I was saying earlier, is that we've just figured out that the fundamental economic position of Granby has changed materially because of these increases in the health insurance and the increases in the school needs, and there's one other item. But, and the health insurance was not a one-year expense. You know, this is an additional $500,000 we're going to be spending forever. And $500,000 over 5 years gives you $2.5 million, not going into stabilization fund, instead of the 1 million, which we got in the last 5 years. So basically, we may be in the position where we have to ask the town for an override for operations. And that's going to be very, very hard. But the alternative is to cut back on operations.
so is the health insurance a cost to the town or cost to the employee?
No, to the town.
The
It's the
town
town's
their
portion.
percentage.
That's the net portion to the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, the health insurance has gone up by about $500,000. And it's just, I mean, it's just,
That works out of a stabilization fund, though, right?
Yeah.
well, I mean, Bob said, you know, if we were putting away $200,000 a year for 5 years instead to try to build it up, and now we've got a cost of $500,000 a year or more. This isn't going to work.
Well, one of the things that concerns me is that our interest on investments has gone up dramatically in the last couple of years. And the money that's in the stabilization fund, unspent appropriations, those are all money that's available to invest. And they're going to be all gone. So you're going to knock down your investment income every year. And that's part of that, what eventually would normally become free cash. You're going to start with lower money.
I guess too, looking at what that said too, is that, and I think one thing I think we pride ourselves on in Granby, was one of the things is that our borrowing and how we can borrow such a lower rate. Is it feasible to borrow additional money and leaving some of that money in the stabilization fund for things that could happen? It's almost saying, it's as us. Do you wipe out your savings account, or you kind of leave some savings money in there? Do you buy a car and spend all cash on it, or is it beneficial to say, I'm gonna leave a few $1,000s in my savings account for a rainy day, and then, and finance some of the car?
But I
The
think
state's not in the best shape right now, and moving forward either. They're not talking about, great days as years to come either right now.
So after you use up your savings account, then you max out your credit card, and now where are you?
Well, that's what I'm saying. At what point do we, and we have to have a solution. We don't have, and that's what I'm saying. So do we, to me, is it worth it to spend less money now and build on the future? than they
For
kinda do
example,
right now?
if the difference between our borrowing rate and our lending rate is 1%, might be bigger than that, then you could make the case that, yeah, sure, that's worth it just to make sure you've got some of this cushion. But then what you have to do is convince the people to borrow the money and have this annual outlay of property taxes go up. And that's what the hard part of it is. It's easy to talk financial people into saying the 1% a year, 2% a year is well within our tolerance and it makes sense for the protection we're getting from it. It's another thing to try to tell a voter that your property taxes are going to go up, okay? And they're going to go up by these many dollars more a year because we're not electing to use money that are in our savings account. And it's very hard to, this new change with the big increase in health insurance and what it's going to do to, we think it's going to be very, very hard to talk to people. We haven't had a chance to sit down and really.
Yeah, I just would hate for us to get to the future to borrow money to keep the town going. That doesn't make sense.
When insurance, don't, at a certain point, we're a contractor or something, so we do a negotiation of prices and stuff like that? Isn't that what they do in insurance for like the whole town, because you supply the whole town with health insurance? And don't you negotiate with an insurance company to finagle a price to fit into what works for the town?
Do we belong, Chris,
I
what
don't know,
do we belong to?
Trust.
Like the Hampshire Trust, who,
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
they bid it out, just like the
Okay, so it's the same.
just like the
you do
town
bid it
wealth
out.
does, right? They bid it out as a group to get the
Yes,
best
but you
rate.
get better price when you.
But in
yes.
general, health insurance costs.
They're bidding out for a group of about 3,000 subscribers.
Okay,
They'll get a better deal than if the town of Granby goes out looking for 300 subscribers.
But even with that said, cost of health insurance is going up.
well, that was my.
Some
I was trying to figure out.
insurance companies do not want to do business in Massachusetts anymore, so it's limiting the insurance companies that are out there as well.
I think this fiscal year, we did not have very much of an increase in health insurance at all. I think it was very small. So that was a one-year benefit. But this is more than making up for it.
Because the reason was they had excess capacity in the reserve funds at the trust, and they were using the reserve capacity to artificially keep the rates low. They no longer have that. So now they have to charge you the true cost of what the rates have been going up for the last 5
That
years.
to me sounds exactly
That's
like
an
taking
excellent
money out of the
analogy.
stabilization fund.
Yeah. The stabilization fund is no longer there to comfort us. You'll be at the point where you say, you can't absorb a year of this because the stabilization fund can't take it. So, and again, we haven't done studies yet to try to project that further, but just in principle, you can understand that $500,000 for absolutely no change in benefits for anybody, no change in services or anything, it's a lot of money for a town like our size.
I think where I have a hard time with allocating the money myself as a taxpayer is the fact that we don't have a fiscal 5-year to 10-year plan on where we stand. We don't have one in town. So I hear Mish with all the projects that we've had, but we don't have when the loans are going to fall off, when that amount's going to be paid off, and then what we can now use those funds for and allocating them.
We do
So-
have that piece of it.
So you guys have a document, because the select board, I've been on it for 3 years, I've never seen it.
No, not a whole financial plan,
Okay.
but the thing about the future payments on all the debt that we've taken on, that's all worked out.
And that's in a document that the taxpayers can see, because it should be out there for us to see where things fall off, when things are getting paid, and then what that money can then be used for.
I don't,
Like, say the West Street
It's not our
Proof.
document, it's
Yeah.
the town's, you know, so.
The
select board's
town
document, Chris's document.
Okay, so accountant, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's, we get it every year as part of the budget package. So we can see what the roll-off's gonna be.
Actually, it's probably the treasurer's document.
Treasurer's document.
It just,
Okay.
I guess that's one of the reasons why, I talk about the West River too. It's just because something like that, we know, curbside collection, that's going up a bit.
Excellent.
We know the cost of waste disposal has dramatically gone up. The money that's been funded years ago doesn't cover it anymore, or won't cover it for the future. So does that, does the town pick up that, absorb that piece? Or does that go back out and look for additional funding from the residents? Yeah, that's happening.
We have too many what-ifs is my issue as to why I don't want to pay more in taxes. I don't know what's going to happen with the trash.
What's that?
Well, the way you guys are all, because I'm just listening in and everything, no matter bottom line, under whatever direction we're going, taxes are going up. Healthcare, trash, building, maintenance. The way you guys are, it doesn't matter, taxes are going up.
Right, but how much they go up does matter, because we're going to hit our cap. And if they're going to go up just to do business in town as far as municipal waste, I know the select board has a job to look into as far as getting a transfer station or something like that. Maybe that's more feasible for our town. But I mean, these are all things that are coming down the pike, but we don't have answers to them now. So to ask people to say, okay, we're going to, this option will increase your taxes by $174. Okay, well, what next year? What the next year? What the next year? And I know you guys can't answer that. That's not your charge. But that's what I worry about down the road in 5 years. Am I going to be so outpriced that I can't afford my house anymore that I built?
Yes, I understand that, 'cause that's everybody's concern, because I just built as well, and I know what my finances are, and that's everybody's concern. That's just normal. And the thing is, you still can't predict the future, even for yourself. You can prepare as much as you want, but you still can't predict it. You could just do the best you can with what you have
So
and try to.
that's the job of the select board right now.
Right.
Is trying to prepare for the future and do the best that we can with the information that we have going forward. And that's why, to me, I say it, nothing against anything, but I just think because it's a piece to save $2 million at this point in time. But it solves a problem that we have at hand. Is office space. We need office space for town offices. That's our need right now. Like I said, it's not a want, it's a need. That's real. That there accomplishes what we need. But it also leaves us ability for the future to do other things. Maybe down the road, as you said, down at the council and agent, we can move forward and keep on doing the additional.
So just another perspective, and I totally appreciate and respect the position that the town is in and weighing these different priorities. I totally get it. I see it all from not just this community, but also many others that we serve. One other thing just to consider, right, is that the cost of construction, right, that's our specialty, historically, and most likely in the future will not go down. So your best value, if you will, right? And again, I'll put my blinders on and admit that they're on, right? Your best option, your best value for this particular project is to bite off as much as you can now, because it will only cost you more, or you will get less for the same money later, right? Everybody gets it.
I agree.
It just helps me sleep at night when I say it out loud and I can hear myself.
And I agree. That's a true statement all day long. However, it comes down to a need and a want.
Right.
What is our need right now? What is our want right now? We need office space. There's no ands if buts about it. We need it. How are we going to get it?
So if we're gonna present something, if you're saying option C, you think option B, John and the finance committee is leaning towards
Nothing.
C or D, we need a charge, that's what we're here for. Tell us what you want us to push, and hopefully the finance committee, and we're a united front, right, wrong, or indifferent, we all present that this is the best option for the town, giving everything we talked about today.
So just to be clear, though, we can present it as the select board, as the finance committee, but we are individuals who can vote how we wish.
You can, but you're representing the town.
Right, but
you can
when I vote as a taxpayer, I'm
Correct.
representing myself. I just want to be clear on that, because that's what we did for option A. That was what was recommended. That's what we brought forth as a select board. And then like Jim had said, and other people said, you guys were very upset that we voted the way that we felt was right in our hearts and in our minds. And you guys can be upset about that. We all have varying opinions. We were expecting a building for 5.7 million. That was the charge. That was what was allocated in December of 2023. In February of 2025, it had tripled. So that is something I was not on board with. So I understand that we can't build something for 5.7 million. I know that it's going to be too expensive, but that's what the taxpayers are holding on to, because we were told in December of 2023 that we would not come back and ask them for more money. And that's on camera. We can go back and watch that meeting.
We know that. We all know
Right.
that.
So
Our
that's,
intention was to
that's,
come back.
right, but that's what they're holding on to, and that's why John is saying that he doesn't think it's gonna pass, because that is what they are holding on to. You said you didn't need more money, you said you could do it with the
3 years
5.7.
have gone by, or 2.5.
You know.
It's not gonna stay the same, but we're looking for your support also. You
As Jim
charged
said, if we have the
somebody.
support of the select board and the finance committee saying, listen, we know we said that, but it's been 3 years. We have investigated with money now. No money was expended back 3 years ago. We did the best we could, and all those quotes we got are right on par with what they're getting for quotes. It's just the other stuff, the unforeseen stuff. So we need support. I mean, if enough people tell the town what Neil just said, it's now or you're
So
not
is
getting.
it, so is it unforeseen, Lynn, because we're trying to renovate an older building? Or can we build a building with the money that we already allocated towards it and not clean out our capital, not clean out our free cash?
So the
And not have adequate space.
It's somewhere to start. It's somewhere to
But
start.
it's kicking the can down the road again with no future. If you're going with a smaller building without this.
But you have to pay the roof of that building before you tear it down. After you tear it down, that's gonna cost you money. That's at least $2.5 million. You know, you're aware of that. Now you take consideration, put up a building. And then you have, and then after you put up the building, you're gonna say, well, in future, we can do this, this, and this. Well, we have a building that already exists that we worked on for 2.5 years, that you guys gave us the grace to do that. And this committee should be commended above and beyond. The problem is that I'm listening to the insurance, you know, I'm listening, it's hit me too. But taxes are gonna go up. Well, regardless of what you do, 2.5 years ago back, the insurance has gone up and materials have gone up. So I mean, the town should be totally aware that yes, everything's going up. So where do we start when we don't have a building to put our municipal offices in? It's ridiculous. I understand it's going to be very costly and it's going to be a burden on the town. But there should be some way that the support, how we can figure it out and move forward in a positive manner, that we have a building that we can consider. How many times have we been approached by other committees in this town? Are we going to have the opportunity to have an office in that building? We have been inundated by people come in. If you guys haven't, there's something wrong. But the situation is, now you're looking at a building that exists. Is it going to be costly? No one's saying it's not. So my view on the situation is, you go for gold. And if they shut it down, go for C. After that, I don't know. The tar and feathering is going to commence, because where are you going to put all these offices? Everybody, we can debate until we all turn blue. The problem is, we need the offices. It's come to the point, this town is consistently, now it's a rusty old can that we're kicking down the road on a consistent basis. Yes, do I want my taxes to go up? Not necessarily. Is it a necessity? Unfortunately, in this particular situation, everybody's between a rock and a hard spot. We have no choice. The choices that we're giving are totally inadequate for the benefit of this town and the future of this town. Consistent. I've heard it when I was a select board member, and I'm hearing it now. All we're doing is kicking this can down the road that is inadequate for the necessity of running the town. Yes, I understand. It's not funny. But we need to do something right now.
And I don't think, at least from my point of view, I don't think we're kicking the can down the road.
You actually were, I don't mean to be rude, Glenn, but you were.
No, I wasn't.
You said, and it's something we're all guilty of saying. Do what we can, the minimum we can now, push the rest out till later.
But that's not kicking the can down the road. It is meeting the needs that we have right now, not a want. The needs right now is office space.
Okay, so the needs
I
an
agree.
office space,
I-
5,000 square feet,
I
and we're kicking around.
can sell a need. It's a need, and people understand, okay, if we don't do this, we don't have any office space for our,
Okay, sell the need, 5,000 square feet. What's that gonna cost, Glenn?
I said
No, but
before,
let's
but
sell it. Let's-
I'm,
let's talk through this.
before, I talked about keeping West Street building, because it allows us to expand for the future. It's a building we have, it expands for the future. It's gonna cost close to $3 million to tear it down, as Steve talked about. Paying for a roof that we're still paying for, that's on there. And you can sell, if you sell that property, we're not getting a lot of money to make a difference in that property. It's gonna cost us more to tear down that building than it is for the property value.
Then why did you guys go over option A when we gave you the 3 options initially when we came to your meeting, when we discussed the price again? I'm just trying to figure out.
Because as Steve talked about, I want us to succeed. And to me, option A was to succeed. I voted for it, I believe in it, I voted as a selectman for it.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it as a taxpayer I voted for it, because I believe it. But I also gotta look at too is that where are we gonna be? We need office space. And like I said, we hear that, well, we'll extend your lease if you want to, but it's gonna cost this, or we want this, we want that. Which is, it is costing the taxpayer additional money. And that is a temporary solution to a problem that's still there. So that's what, to me, it's saying, the 4.3 million, I'm behind that 100%. Option B, I can get behind that probably 70%, because it's more of what, it meets our needs, but it's still also the want. As a select board member, I gotta figure out.
So you're saying the need is municipal offices?
Yes.
The want is the COA with it?
Yes. Because right now, we have office space up there that reality is a year from now, year and a half now, we may not have anymore.
Is abating the whole building a want or a need?
It's a want.
I think right now, and as the gentleman talked about, is that if we're able to do it, makes sense. But if we're not able to do it, we need to do what we can do so we can prepare for the future.
So who makes that decision if we're able to do it? Because there is a cost difference between, a 1.3 million cost difference between abating the whole building with windows or not. So option C would be a 2.92 or a 4.1999.
And the voters might just agree with that and say, why wouldn't we spend that little bit more and take care of the building? I don't know.
I don't know either. That's
I mean,
fear factor.
for the amount of people that showed up at the meeting, I mean, it wasn't.
Well, the elderly might say, why are we spending 2 million more for COA? 2 million, we can't build 2 million.
Mean option B. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because
There's no easy answer, but I think,
Because my question is, what does that new COA get us that this building here is now?
So the primary thing it's going to give them is each of the spaces over there where they've known in terms of getting private space and
Right, so we
elderly
And those
so
upstairs.
the office
Over there.
space, so we have the whole
Yeah,
upstairs.
which they could potentially use the upstairs. The other piece of it is that they get more program space with which granted they'd be scheduling and coordinating with the town in terms of shared use, but they get the gym and the cafeteria, which, assuming we do option B, I think still had the partition in it.
Yeah.
Then potentially that is 3 separate spaces that can be programmed, as opposed to 1 space here for activity.
So we're getting a little bit more, because like I said, the office space is for them to conduct meetings and things like that. And some of that's by law, they have to have.
Well, it's both
area.
meetings as well as elder care.
Yeah, well,
So what piece of this puzzle can we all get behind
Yeah,
and move forward with it? And that includes finance committee.
yeah.
If we're gonna do something for the town, there's gotta be some compromises here and give the best
Bang for their buck.
providing for the.
Not saying it's easy, but we need to turn around and think of the future. I'm for option B right now.
Full abatement?
And the only reason why is because you can, abating a building, it's not easy. I even asked about charging the system, the sprinkler system for the rest of the building. And they would put in, I'm assuming they would stop at a certain point, but give us the option to continue on.
I believe that the sprinkler design as it is has the capacity to support the whole building. Correct.
but option C has that as well.
Yes, it would still have the full capacity. The piping in terms of the distribution just stops short.
And truly, if it's the town's preference, that could be backed out, and we could only provide the bare minimum that we need to support just the municipal offices. And you would have to find excess capacity later if you chose to expand into the school. There's an infinite, it's like an onion, right? Layer on layer on layer. We're trying to give you the best value that we can today based on the intended full use of that facility at some point in time. And all of that can be pulled back if that is the town's desire. But it wasn't what the committee was originally charged with, so.
I mean, we're running out of time here to get behind whatever charge you want us to.
But I also think we need to knock down a few of these suggestions of building a 5,000 square foot new construction or putting a modular on that property.
I've moved on, but
No, maybe you have, but I'm not sure that.
But my only point with that, Lynn, was to say, well, if people didn't want the West Street building, and they said, no, we still want to tear it down. Okay, what are our options? We still need office space. That's what I'm saying, so that to me is sitting here with the
Can we just respond to you what those options are? A modular costs more than what we're paying for renovation of West Street School per square foot. It would be new. They'd be temporary.
Do you have numbers on? No?
Because
I know you guys looked into it, right?
I know
Okay.
that,
It was $500 to $600.
560 a square foot, or a project that Neil has been working on for the last couple of years. And today's numbers turn out to be 660 a square foot.
They used to, but to renovate it was 1,000 square feet,
No,
to
that's
renovate
new
it's
construction.
less than 550.
less than 550.
So
New
that,
construction's 1,000 square
to
foot.
that point, that's important for the taxpayers this year.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
So that's why I wanted to get it out to you guys so you would understand that, because we're hearing from the finance committee, John had talked to me separately and said, what about having modulars? So I looked into that. I've gotten phone calls from other people in town saying, what about modulars? So, working with the architect and the OPM, they're just giving us rough estimates right now, but those numbers aren't gonna go down.
No.
Right, so, and it's a
There's not a
3-year.
big differentiation between what we have proposed and what they're, with the other parent down doing.
Right.
We're not gaining any,
No.
we're not saving any.
But again, I think the underlying factor to consider is that the 5,000 square feet doesn't solve your problems.
Yeah.
It just creates another 5,000 square foot roughly deficit that you'll need to address in the short term. right? So I just, again, we just, I just want to make
I
sure.
agree with that. Again, and
And numbers wise, there's not much difference.
Right.
I think West Street, the building, is our solution to the problem we have here.
I just want to make sure Crystal is on the same page as you because she is asking questions.
Chris, I do have a question about the COA upstairs. Would you say that's roughly 2,200 square feet that you guys are using upstairs? Because the whole building is 6,200. So there's
Give or
four,
take. I'll say
there's,
give or take, yeah.
there's 4 offices up there, plus the 4 offices at the annex. That puts us at 4,524 square feet that they're currently using. And I have many people who work in the annex who said that they are more than happy to work in the space that they have now. That yes, would it be nice to have more? Yes, but that they can work with what they have. And they even said they can work at Carnegie Hall if need be. So they're willing to go down to smaller spaces if that is what the town needs to do in order to fix the annex issue as of right now. So if we have to move them temporarily, while we figure out whether it's West Street, new building, what have you, that they are willing to do that. And then of course you have some people who say that it's a waste of time, waste of money. So you've got 2 different sides. So I just want to make sure we're exploring all of the sides. So a 5,000 square foot building would be more than what they have now.
If,
Yep.
For just the annex.
for just the annex.
No, for the annex and the 4 offices upstairs, because I calculated them both together based off the square footage you gave me.
But the new building would cost
That's the point. You spend just as much.
just
for
as
that.
much, and we have
We only have 5,000 square feet.
future expansion.
Compared to 40.
44,000, correct.
What's it going to cost to raise the building?
2.5 million.
No,
is what they quoted us.
it's more than that, 2.9 million.
Okay, two.
And that's a low estimate because we have soft costs that are in there.
Okay, just, yeah. Let's say $3 million.
Yeah.
Okay? All right. Would you like to do this raising no additional money? Because you got 5.9 allocated already?
5.7.
All right. They're living in 24 square feet over the annex. Split the 4 departments into 2 each. Move half of them into the library. And their half of what they have, so instead of 1,200 feet, they're going to move into 2,000 feet. Build a 1,200 square foot building for $1,000 a square foot. That's 1.2 million.
1,200 square foot building?
For 2 people, for 2
for
offices.
2 offices.
So we're splitting the offices between
Splitting-
buildings.
splitting those.
Keeping people here, putting in the Carnegie and building a new.
He's giving an option so
So-
that it
so
doesn't
Bill-
cost any money.
So build a 1,200 square foot building to fit the rest of them. Everybody's in an office, and your costs are what? Your costs are 1.2 million plus 3 is $4.2 million. Everybody's housed. It's a temporary solution because we're spread out all over the place. Everybody's house costs $4.2 million. Take the original allocation of 5.9, and you get money back.
But what you
Well,
just said.
that would work
that you
only-
just said, John, that's a temporary solution
Right.
to a permanent problem that we have.
But that only works if the study doesn't go through about the foot traffic in the buildings in order
Yeah.
for the office. It all sounds good, but then you got other factors you gotta.
I don't want a temporary solution. I want a permanent solution for the future.
So you have to add in some money for those sorts of things.
I'm just,
Yeah,
Sure,
and
yeah.
it's not gonna be an extra $2 million. And, but if what you're saying is that we need a solution because we need office space, well, the office space you need is somewhere in the annex. That's the office space you need. It's different to say we need office space and put everybody together because that's better for the town operations to go together. But it's different to say we need some place to put the people that are in the annex. You can do that. You can do that for 1.2 million.
But now we have 3 different locations.
Right.
The annex is the one that they all
Right.
wanted,
And
triple what they have.
yeah.
But fiscally, it doesn't make sense to spend that kind of money for 2 offices, for 2 people.
And I'm kind of shocked that they said that they were okay with the space they had because their needs assessment.
Yeah.
We had to bring all of them down.
Yeah.
All those people over there wanted double and triple what they had. And we brought it down to not much more than what they have.
You're getting a lot more space.
You're saying spend 4.6 million for a 1,200 square foot building.
It'd be 5.6 if you get rid of the building, right? Because that was 3 million and then he's
It's
saying.
3 million to get, 3 million to get rid of the building, and all you need, just to replace the offices that are in the annex, is about 1,200 square feet.
So to,
And that's giving them more space than they have now, because it's 1,200 plus.
But John, that comes out, if you do the math on that comes out to $4,000 a square foot.
No, $1,000 a square foot times,
Not to.
Tore down the building.
To take that building down? 3,000 or 3 million to take the building down?
That's-
That's 4.2 million or 4.6 million to gain 1,200 square feet.
you look at any of the individual pieces, and all those things are true, but what I'm saying is that in the big picture, if you say that our problem right now is we have to figure out what to do with the people in the annex,
If
here's
this
the way to
gets
do it.
voted down,
I would,
I think that's
I
where
would,
he's
I would
going.
agree with,
if it gets.
I mean, how fiscally responsible is that?
but I would agree with that. But to me, that is just throwing money away
Yeah.
at this point, because now we just spent $4.2 million on how many square foot building that houses two
42
offices?
But John,
Two
just to be
people?
clear, that's if it gets, if whatever option we go with gets shot down.
No, I think he's
No,
saying,
or is it-
he's just saying we could
Okay.
do it for the 5.9 million
Okay.
if we
And
get
get
this.
Because we do need a solution, so it's not necessarily a bad solution if this does get voted down, whatever option we end up going with.
But yeah,
But-
what I'm saying is that, imagine that the ballot vote fails. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, we,
Well, if nothing else, here's an option.
yeah. That's what I thought you were saying, but I think everyone thought that that's what you want to propose moving forward.
I don't
Well-
think,
And you don't think that's throwing money away?
Yeah, I don't
I
think
don't
it's,
think it's gonna fail if we get behind it and start promoting it.
that's the piece.
That's-
If we have to have agreement and start promoting this.
That's what we thought last time. Matter of fact.
No.
I stood up at the informational meeting and said I was in favor. I liked the idea, the one that you presented.
But then at town meeting,
The
the finance
finance
committee said
committee-
otherwise, and the
finance
select board
committee
said
said
otherwise, or the select board didn't
John,
really talk.
let me ask you, so, for the finance committee, is there either one of those proposals, either B or C, that the finance committee could stand behind, and say, makes sense, I can see us doing this. Yes, it's gonna cost the town some money, but again, for our future, and I've been on select board now 8 years, I've been in town for almost 30 years now. And again, what's the future? Someone started off saying, we bought this building as a temporary solution. Well, it seemed like it became a permanent solution.
Yeah, I mean, personally, as I said, I liked option A.
Well, option A is not feasible because it's not happening.
Yeah.
I like option A too, but
And I misguessed how the finance committee would react to option A, obviously. We had not talked about other options, so I can't tell you how.
to Lynn's point to it, and I think that's where if the finance committee gets together and says, okay, we can stand behind this option, support this option. The select board gets together and says, yes, we can support this option. It goes back to that united front. Okay, we're all behind it. This is what we can support moving forward. And I understand as individuals, we vote on our own part. But
As a board, you vote for the town.
as board, we vote for the town.
Yep.
To me, it's a solution for the future.
Are you getting clickers for the meeting in,
I'm not talking about, I'm not being a moderator at this meeting.
no, in June?
No,
For the town meeting?
If it
I
passes
haven't-
the ballot.
I have not even thought about that yet, and I would be talking to the TA about that.
If there's a special town meeting, it would be at the same time as the first of the annual town meetings, or the second, in June, the second of the annual town
Yeah,
meetings in June.
second part.
I don't know, why would you think there'd be a benefit to clickers?
Because then people could present as a committee what the committee thinks and could vote individually.
No, before the vote, the committee should have presented how the committee feels, and then you can vote when the vote happens, the way
Yeah.
you want to vote personally. But the committee, as a committee, should stand up at some point and when discussion starts and say, the finance committee agrees, this is a great project for the town. And this is why, bing, bang, boom. And then you sit down, and if you vote differently as an individual, then you vote differently.
Right, that's what we're trying to say.
But someone from the select board has to stand up during town meeting and say, we brought this forward and here's why. And then the finance committee stands up, obviously, and backs up, and then you vote the way you want to vote. I'm not saying there's not gonna be clickers, I'm just saying there's a,
It's united front, the people that are invested say yes, as the select board that represents the town, the finance committee that represents the town, and the building committee look at what the building is. We're saying, yes, we feel this is our best option right now, not just to meet our needs now, but hopefully meet our needs in the future.
So, I think, to go right to C, I think we're cheating the people in town out of taking a look at B. And if we can't put two options, or you don't feel comfortable putting two options, two options to vote, then I say you put B in front of them. And if they don't like that, then the last,
You can do amendment on the floor, which.
well, you can't do an amendment after it's voted down.
well, you can't do an amendment.
You'd have to read the line.
Amend it
We're talking
before,
ballot.
right?
Yeah.
We're talking ballot.
The ballot first.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
And then appropriations for the article is what you're talking about.
Well, the ballot says for municipal space.
Right.
So the ballot doesn't say option A or option B, it just says.
It just,
No,
will you-
let's just make sure it could be your C, not A.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Just so people know.
So the ballot, if it passes, what is the select board gonna bring to town meeting? Option B? Option B and option C? And only get to option C if B, which is what you had asked way back in the
right,
beginning.
I have no problem supporting both, saying, choose. But reality is, we need something. It's not a want, we need this.
Yeah.
Pick one, to move forward, we gotta pick one. Not picking an option is really not the best solution for us.
But we can't have the select board behind option B and the finance committee behind option C. So we have to,
So I guess my question for the finance committee, because what I'm having a hard time with is taking away from our capital, and taking away from our free cash where we have no savings. So I don't know how you guys feel about that. And I think whether we do option B or C, we're doing that. We have nothing in those two accounts.
Well, we will have the free cash at the this fiscal year.
There's another piece of this too that Steve Nally spoke to us about, that he's gonna do a short term. So by the time we burn through the money that's been appropriated, the cash we have, the 5.6 plus the other two, we'll be at the end, towards the end of the project, which will be, what, another year and a half out?
I mean, we assumed that with pens in hand, let's say July 1st, just because it's an easy date. July 1st, we probably have documents together in 3 months. Yes, no?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Breathe?
but don't we have?
You say two, he said three, partly, but we've got to back out.
Oh, he's got his pen in hand already.
So just to follow the timeline out, right? July, August, September, you've got documents ready, you go to bid October 1. It's a 6 to 8 week minimum to get documents, bids received. So you're looking at somewhere around October, November, December 1 to award a contract. And then you're plus 9 months to a year for construction. So you're probably looking at, close to the end of calendar year 2026
Yeah.
before occupancy could be anticipated. And that's just sort of back a
So the end
napkin.
of 26, the first of 27,
Right.
Yeah.
give or take.
So still need a place for our offices.
So with that being said, we don't even touch most of that money until
Right.
the tail end.
Yeah, say the last half of the year, you have to arrange for temporary, short-term financing
So
options.
so we're
to complete
still,
the project.
so we're still socking a little bit of money into free cash. We're still collecting a little interest on what's there.
But to your point, Jim, so you'd have the free cash from the current fiscal year, plus fiscal year 2026. You have 2 years of free cash coming to
If we don't spend it at town meeting for operating costs.
Well, all the money that's been allocated from switching money from the project, so all of that looks just like stabilization fund money. at this point. It's money that we have. And to the extent that that's spent, it doesn't make any difference which pocket it comes out from.
Right.
It's money that the town doesn't have to.
But to kind of say that there's reality that some of that money that we're taking out within the next 2 years, or before the building's actually finished, will be replenished.
But the question becomes, when are we able to take out a loan? And is the final loan only going to be granted after the project is?
Are you talking the bond or are you talking?
The bond.
So he told us he's going to short-term borrow.
Well, no, he's gonna use cash reserves first.
Right.
And then he's gonna go into short-term borrowing.
And then
And because if the rates don't look good, he's gonna hold off. And then he's gonna go probably in 2027 for bond.
The idea is, well, at least as I understand it, the idea is you can't over bond
Right.
a project. So oftentimes you look at short-term financing until the final numbers are known and or highly predictable. And then you would go for a long-term financing.
So you can make a bet against interest rising, but you can't make a bet against them falling.
He disagrees. He thinks interest rates are going to go down.
Yeah, he's actually been meeting with,
With East Hampton Bank, I think this week, but he thought, 5.5, he's giving us high.
He started.
These numbers are high, 5.5% rate.
One of the things I wanted to touch base, because we listen to every meeting, just like you guys do, listen to everybody else. And one of the things people keep bringing up, and I think it needs to be clarified, is people keep asking grants. You know, that's one question we're asked, why aren't we going for grants for this? People also need to realize we need to appropriate the funds first, because we're never guaranteed a grant. We can apply for grants, everything else, and then when we do, it does get put on this, and then the price will come down, less time and everything else. But unfortunately, in order for us, because everyone talks about it, why we're doing grants, we have to appropriate the funds first.
We have to
We have to have a shovel-ready project per se, not
Correct.
shoveling anything, but.
Correct.
shovel-ready work. 'Cause there was an ADA
Yep.
grant this year, but we
In
couldn't
May.
apply for it because we didn't have.
Next month.
Right. So we are thinking about it. It's why, because we're talking a lot of things, and I know a lot of people are going to be watching this meeting, and I want to make sure that's also cleared, clarified, for
That's
people to
what-
understand. It's not like we're not thinking about it, but we need to get certain steps in order for us to do that.
So it's not so much the money appropriated, because you had 5.7 appropriated, it's being shovel ready or being ready
But
for
the project is
construction.
in the works.
Yes,
It's
the
been-
whole, yeah.
Yeah, the project
But
needs
for
to be.
like the kitchen grant, no. Because doing a commercial kitchen isn't part of this scope.
Right.
So we'd have to go back to the town to appropriate, say, $1 million.
Okay.
And then we could go to the rural fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything else has to be appropriated first. I just want people to know we are thinking about that. There are ways, we're not just here to like, oh, let's just raise everyone's taxes. That's not our thinking.
They're not giving you a grant until they actually show that you actually have something.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
you can do it yourself.
Well,
Correct.
fingers crossed. If B is what we all agree on, and this building goes out for sale and it sells, that's going to lower the bond.
A little, well, yeah.
Yeah. Everything we try to do.
We
is
look
lower.
at, so if this building does sell for $700,000-800,000, we're looking at additional two, which really additional $1.2 billion.
Right.
Which is, it's feasible.
As a practical matter, I think it'd be better off keeping the money and sticking in the stabilization fund.
Oh, instead of putting it towards the, that's a,
Because otherwise,
that's an argument for later.
you've got the debt there.
Yeah.
Right,
And
right.
and if you
It would be.
pay the debt down, then
in theory,
the override goes
just
down.
make sure you start hitting the right number.
Same thing, but different way of doing it, but same concept. Yeah. That's what you're.
Jim, you mentioned Steve using up all the available cash. Well, the
No, I
interest,
didn't say used up.
He would use the cash reserves.
Yeah, cash.
cash reserves,
That are appropriated for the project.
The money,
is that what he said, or?
no, what we talked about was the money that was appropriated, 5.6,
Yeah,
we would go through that first.
oh, yeah.
And then
And then do a short-term borrow.
No, 5.6 first, and then 2 million.
Yeah.
any
Okay.
stabilization.
So
Okay,
7.6.
when you say cash reserves, that pretty much is our cash
Right.
reserve, though.
Well, the 5.6,
I'm talking about the money that was already appropriated.
Yeah, that's our cash reserve, as a practical matter. I mean, there's probably some other cash around. Yeah, there is. There's the money that we borrowed for the ambulance, which we haven't paid for yet. So that is, right today, free cash, or not free cash, but it's cash. Could be gone come September.
I don't think too that the town's gonna, remember, we appropriated some money some time ago for a new fire truck,
Yeah.
for a fire engine that we're not gonna move forward with,
You know, I didn't put that in my projection at all,
so.
because that would have been,
I mean, that may be
Another
something, we have a
300,000 or
fire
something
chief
like
and he
that.
comes in there, his position and looks at everything and stuff like that, but it is something we can consider.
That was a borrowing article.
That was, yeah.
That was not cash, that was a borrowing.
No, but it's to the point where people, I think, were spending that money.
Oh, I see.
That's what I'm talking about. We'd have to still borrow that money, and at this point in time, we wouldn't be borrowing that money.
Just so I can understand it,
But
when
my
you say
point
taking the
was-
money for the ambulance, didn't the ambulance get paid from the billing that we collected from? So it's not actually taxpayers' money that we're purchasing the new ambulances, it's from the funds we received from the department?
Would be a question for Chris.
that's
What
an
Bob is saying, what Bob is saying,
Yeah, I just want to understand.
we have $399,000 that we borrowed for the ambulance.
Okay,
As the ambulance has not been delivered,
right,
currently is investable cash
okay,
that would be allowed to gain interest. Once you get the ambulance and pay it, that cash is gone. It's
Okay.
no longer investable.
okay. It's not like we raised taxpayers' money for it, but I understand now it's for investing you were referring to.
Yeah.
Okay,
So if you use up all your cash reserves, we last year, you were going June, logged into that fiscal year $460,000 of interest. As soon as the cash reserves are gone, we've got a big hole in the following year's free cash because there isn't any excess anymore.
But to Jim's point, most of that money's gonna sit there until, through most of fiscal year 26, because
Oh, yeah.
by the time these guys bid everything out-
Timing wise,
Yeah.
it's a different issue.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So fiscal year 27, yeah, don't count on that 460,000 interest rate.
Yeah, I was just trying to give you a timeline of how the money would be dispersed.
So then we're back at the question,
yeah.
option B or option C? And so I was asking you, Bob, which one you preferred.
Oh, you were asking.
I was. Option B or option C?
I'm torn on between the two, C, but I'm torn whether I can support either one. Because I really feel that down the road, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, whenever the timing all washes out, we're gonna have some real problems being able to meet the budget. And I'm sort of a believer that operating the services the town provides is more important than where they're housed, even though obviously that is providing a service.
So with that same philosophy, where are we without office space? Because we need to have office space. We have the one John talked about, which is doing something like that. But again, we're spending $4.2 million to house 2 office spaces. To me, that is ridiculous. To spend that kind of money for two. That's just
No,
crazy.
you're also tearing down West Street School.
I get that, but the reality is we tore down the school to put up an office space for 2 offices, for 2 people, for $4.2 million.
You'd be better off renovating.
Yeah, no,
That's what I'm saying. I can't wrap my head around that.
but instead I'm focusing in on what is our problem today. Our problem today is we need office space.
What amount of money would you spend to do this?
Well, the problem is that I just, on the back of my head, here, figured out that you wouldn't have to spend anything more than what you've already allocated. That's the problem. That solves, if the problem is stated as we need office space to move people out of the annex into something different, that problem is easily solved by what we've already allocated. It doesn't involve,
Do you-
it doesn't involve
do
the
you-
West Street School building remaining as a
Do
standing
you
structure.
agree that that solves it on a short-term, temporary basis? Or,
Well, it solves it on a short term basis, clearly, whether it's temporary or not, depends upon how you feel about the offices being spread out in different places.
But that doesn't include either what it would cost of the old library to
Move everything.
to confirm, form that into office space too.
I think when the town voted to appropriate the 5.6, the town agreed that our offices should be in one spot.
For them.
So,
Our town,
I know, oh, I know.
for $5.9 million.
I get that. But the town agreed that we should all be in one spot. All the offices should be in one spot. Obviously, the budget grew. We're asking for more. So if we can't compromise between B and C, then that your option there, John, just to tear
fix
down the
it.
school to get 1,200 square feet ruins our future in that building. And then anything we do beyond that is going to be, who knows how far down the road it's going to come, and what it'll cost at that point if we decide to do it.
The future is not free. If we spend a lot of money now and refurbish what we can in the West Street School and prepare the rest of the building for possible expansion in there, that's not a cost-free option in the future. You don't get to just move into an empty space. So where's the money going to come from? It's going to come out of the budget or another increase in taxes or operating expenses.
How I'm
And
picturing it,
if you think that at some point the town is going to be perfectly willing to raise additional money, then
But raise
go
additional,
along,
raise additional money for what?
The rest of the.
for what you want to do for the expansion. I mean, the idea of doing everything that was planned for keeping West Street School is so that we can expand into the space.
Says 15 years from now, people might feel a lot different than we feel. You may say, you know what, we want to do this. It's a different town 15 years from where we are now.
And who knows what required space the town's gonna need because of offices that the government says they gotta have or whatever, you know?
So John, could you get behind the fact, or Bob, to do option C without the full abatement of the building, closing out the rest of that building, and just getting the municipal offices into West Street? And that would be a 2.9 million bond. Assuming that you're gonna get 2 million out of,
Take 2 million out of stabilization and
And then-
2.9.
well, the 5.6, and then the 2 million. And that's gonna leave us with a borrow of 2.9 million. It'll leave us with 22,000 less than 20,000 square feet rent,
12. You're going to be about 12,000 square feet. Rent paid.
It's difficult to say because, as I said, we haven't really done any kind of projections about what kind of financial burden providing services we're run into.
I mean, if I could,
Given that these additional amounts of money are there, except for, let me ask then, probably the toughest question to ask. Is everybody in here willing to say the school should operate at minimum requirement? There's the other source of money. It's like we've been saying that if you don't like the way the schools are operating now and you'd like them to have more money, we're going to come to a point very, very quickly now where either the police department, the fire ambulance department, or the highway department has got to be gutted. Because those are the only other big budgets. Every other fund, every other business, every other department we have in town is basically a small budget. And, for example, we can't do
I
away
guess my
we
question-
can't do away with the assessor's department.
Why would they,
Because
but why would they be gutted? We're still bringing in tax revenue that pays for those services. Unless those budgets for some reason just went skyrocketed.
Well, what I'm saying is that all of a sudden, we're not completely confident that we are going to be having all those revenues coming in to cover all the expenses, because we're suddenly, we've got this big chunk that we didn't think about even 2 years ago that we've got.
But my thing, I guess I look at, John, you talk about this piece coming through. There's people building $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 homes in this town, and they're bought. they're not building them to sell. People are building them. So that says something right there.
Yeah, I know, and that was one of the things that surprised me about the disparity between saying, are we growing or are we not growing, by looking at the population. Clearly with population, we're decreasing, but people are building houses.
And remember,
People are building, new houses are coming up.
Yeah, let me clarify that, because I made a comment about that after the meeting.
Yeah.
You said 40 years ago, we were at 6,000, and today we're at 6,000.
Well, I said-
40 years ago, we were at 5,300 or something like that. Our school population is decreasing, but our housing market is increasing.
Yeah, population is clearly decreasing. That's the figures I put you on.
Families get smaller.
Yeah.
We're getting smaller in population. But it's because, and the reason we keep bringing in money is because the number of households in town it's gone up 74% in the last 50 years, while the population has decreased. In the last, since the mid-2010s.
It's a good point too,
So
John.
we've got all this housing there, and that's where the property tax comes from.
Well, yeah, but almost all of our money comes from property taxes, not residential.
So I'm just.
But the point is though too, you have people that are moving into town that this time may have no children, may have one child. In the future, they will have additional children maybe. But, I mean, but if someone moves in and says, well, you know, those families of 3, 4, 5, 6, they're not allowed anymore. But you still see these 2,500, 3,000 square foot houses that are being built, because that's what people are building. And to my point, they're building for the future. They're not building what they need, they're building, well, we need 4 bedrooms because we're gonna have more kids. I'm not gonna buy a 2-bedroom, I'm not gonna build a 2-bedroom because I have 1 kid now, I know in the future I'm gonna have 2 or 3 kids. I got a plan for that. So, I mean, you look around, these are brand new houses that are going up. And this has been consistent over the past 5, 6 years. This isn't nothing new. I mean, there's land that people thought would never build houses, and there are houses on it.
And that's exactly, I think, what I was saying, is that if you look over the last short term, there's been this big increase in the number of households in Granby. And it's also been a big decrease in the people per household. So how long is it going to take for, families to appear in these new houses? I mean, I don't
But
understand.
you also take into consideration
It's been
that.
happening for so long,
But-
and the decrease is going on in population.
But true, but you also take into consideration that someone like myself and other people, the children, the children are growing up and they're moving out, they're going to other places. So yeah, the population is decreasing, but still, when someone moves out, someone moves in. And I think what you see now is people that are building houses, because right now there's not enough houses in Granby for sale. So people are taking the option to build houses. It's costing more money, but people are doing it because that's the option they want to take. So to me, what does that say about our town? If people didn't want to move here, I don't think you see the type of, what houses that are being built, but how many are being built? 5 years ago, going on Morgan Street, that was all land.
Yeah.
It's all houses now.
But it doesn't matter, does it, how many people are in the house? Your taxes are the same. You
The
got
taxes,
one or
taxes,
five.
right, doesn't matter how many people are in the house. The value of that house is what it is, and the taxes, the property taxes are what they are.
And not everybody turns in their census, so you don't truly get an accurate. So you talk, like, I don't fill that out, so you don't really actually get a true
Correct.
population.
That's why I use US, that's why I use US Census figures in the document.
What's it- I mean, I don't think, you know, saying our population is. Okay, that's, and I think that's in a lot of places, because for many different reasons, like I said, in the family sizes, if you look, our country has decreased from where it was 10 years ago, 15 years, 20 years ago.
Yeah, you don't have 5 or 6, 7 kids in a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom.
No.
Yeah.
But we're still, and again, I'll say it again, there's something about Granby that is making people move here and build houses. Because if it wasn't, it's a big expense. Of all the places you can build a house, and these are big houses that are, again, probably between $500,000 and $700,000. They can build anywhere they want. Where they building? In Granby. So if you ask the question, why are they building here? And do we want to keep that going? I think that's what I guess the taxpayers got to hear. People are doing that, so if you start saying, well, we don't want to do this, we want to do that, does that stop the people from moving here? Well, I'd be a little upset if I just built a $7,000 home and thinking, well, my gosh, all this stuff I'm hearing, people just don't care about the community. Why do they move here?
It's not that they don't care. I can also play devil's advocate on the other side. I just built a house for $700,000 and now my taxes are already going up and I don't even live there yet. So you could also say it the other side too.
My taxes have gone up for the past 25 years, every single year.
And you're still here.
I'm still here. Because and I look at what other towns and cities face the same situation. And it's, okay, what do you get? Again, why are people building those houses here? Granby must have something to make people come here.
May I make a humorous comment?
He's cracking himself up.
The reason people are coming here is because we don't have centralized town offices.
That's why they're coming here?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you should talk to them.
Stop
They're
it,
coming
stop
looking
and
for
think. I mean, central office is gonna bring more people?
No, but it's gonna
No,
bring
no.
convenience
Oh, yeah,
for everyone.
absolutely.
It's gonna bring continuity and efficiency and camaraderie.
Separate
somehow or other-
I'm not even saying, you know, and Kevin's point made earlier. I think the town voted that's what they'd like to see. So the town's saying, hey, we'd like to see all the town offices under one roof. We don't want to pay $13 million for that.
At what cost?
At what cost? They may be willing to spend a little bit less to accommodate that. Again, what are the options? If this isn't the option, what's the next option? And there was
Okay,
options
so-
out there, that's costly.
What I'm suggesting is that you have just changed what you said our current problem is. You start off by saying, our current problem is we gotta figure out, we need some offices. Now you're saying, we need some offices in a space which all offices are in. That's a different problem.
No. I'm saying what Kevin spoke about earlier, what the town voted on to appropriate money. They like the idea of putting all town offices under one roof. They like that. That's why they moved forward with the $5.6 million worth. That's why they like that idea. What they don't like is the additional costs that it costs. We're not willing to spend that amount of money on that. Okay, so if we can still give you that option that you like for less cost, would you buy that?
So, and that basically is what I'm saying, I think in a different direction, is that the first thing that they were offered, putting all the offices together for $5.6 million. Fantastic. Everybody was for it. I mean, particularly because we really didn't have to raise any taxes to do that. We had money that we could get from different sources. They did not vote that they wanted town offices together. They said they wanted town offices together for $5 million, $6 million. You now have to put a different question in front of them. The different question is, do you want town offices together for $10 million? Well, first of all, the question you asked was, do you want town offices together for $15 million? And they said,
Okay.
so now you're going to say, the question we're asking you is, you want town offices together for $10 million? How good, can you do any better than that?
Well,
They haven't said that they want town offices together. They said that they want them together for a certain amount of money. How certain are you?
But they did say that. They won't
For a
spend.
certain amount of money.
And I get that, and I get that, and I understand that. So it comes to a point saying, okay, do you want to still keep the town offices together? Okay, are you willing to spend this? No, that's too much. Okay, are you willing to spend this? Well, that's a little more reasonable. How about this? No, I can see us spending that.
Okay, where is that point? What is that number?
We have two options, we have B and C.
Get one chance at
B or C?
Those are the options we have.
Well, we have B, C, B1, and C1. Meaning B1 and C1.
With full abatement or no
With full
abatement.
abatement.
So there's 4 options.
Right now.
Which of those 4 options are you willing to bring to town meeting? Or which 2 of those 4 options? Or do you want all 4 options? Or do you want to make it an amendment and say, oh, can we get this lower by not abating?
You can't think of bringing this to town meeting. You have to think of bringing this to the ballot box.
Which is what Lynn's been trying to do this whole meeting, is figure out which one option can we all get behind.
Right.
And I'm not 100% sure I even want to keep West Street Building because of the leaky basement coming in through the wall. I dealt with an old house. You never know what you're going to get when you start tearing things down, how much more costs you're going to have to get. You have a bond. You think it's only going to cost this much. Oh, the whole wall's rotted. This whole section needs to be redone. Now you got to go back for more money. So
Except that there's contingency built in, number 1, and number 2, they've
for the
done
10%,
extensive.
right?
They've done extensive research in
Assessments?
the building
Okay.
to determine if the wall is rotting on the inside. The water in the basement wasn't something that we were looking at, but doesn't appear it's going to be a major problem to either of our experts. So I can't imagine we'd ever go back to the town because that's going to add another 2 or 3 million to the project. It's going to maybe add money, but we have the contingency for that. The 10%, there's, how much contingency are we added?
It was 10%, he said.
There's
And
10%
10,
on the total.
For design and for, right.
and there's money within the design budget for unforeseens that haven't been fleshed out yet.
So those thinking it like it's a house versus a building, the building's already been looked at, that's why we tripled. I can't imagine it's gonna go much higher.
That's like doing a renovation. You have someone came in and give you all the costs, so you know what's gonna cost to renovate it. There shouldn't be any, there may be a surprise here or there, but you anticipate that, as you said, in the cost.
And that's why the numbers went up, because the architects went in and found the problem.
Danvers Architects.
And can I just ask you a question about the new construction? Because I have a general contractor that currently builds houses and builds buildings that said 500 a square foot. So why is it
It's
1,000?
called prevailing wages.
I would
So even
suggest.
with prevailing
that that's a
wage, he said he
big
could
Piece
do
of
it.
that, that's not prevailing wage.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is 100% prevailing wages.
And it doesn't include professional services.
That's just construction.
Yeah.
So you have to add in the soft costs.
And professional services, meaning,
OPM,
okay,
design,
okay,
Things that would require.
okay.
No offense, guys, it'd be nice if you guys were along.
not heard at all.
That's hurtful. That's hurtful.
So my other question to you, when you said the 500,
Yeah.
was he referring to this as a residential build? Or a municipality build? Which
guess-
is business construction, which is different than a residential.
So how is it different? Because right now we're in a house.
we're renting.
We're renting, we're,
We don't rent this.
Oh, now
we
you're talking
own
about the
this.
annex.
No, right now we're in a house.
This is a business.
Okay, but it was built as a house, right?
It's a business. It's a business.
This
Okay.
is built for
Hairdressing.
yeah, hairdresser.
Hairdressing.
Hairdresser,
Yeah.
that was always a business.
Yep.
But the annex is a house, yes, and that's the problem. If we keep it and
It
buy it,
changes.
we have to make it
Right.
change.
Walls have to get wider and, yeah, I know there's a lot that goes into it. Okay,
That's why I was just trying to make sure to clarify that part.
okay. Because that was one of the questions on town floors.
Yes.
Well, I could do it for 500
We
a
still had
square
that same
foot.
question at the
Okay.
Q&A, we tried to talk about that, and then after town meeting, the OPM actually talked to that particular person about why it couldn't be that. And
Okay.
Is there anything wrong?
I'm sure it didn't
with-
make an impression, but.
with saying that I can support both options moving forward. I like the town to make that decision, what they feel is best for the overall town. So is a way to say to the ballot, to get to that ballot box, to move on from the ballot box, to say, hey, yes, we want to hear those 2 options that you want to bring forward, so the town can make a decision at a town meeting.
So
Yeah,
that's what we're trying to do by having informational sessions, 1 a week for the next 4 weeks. Having people come ask their questions and say, this is what, if you go to the ballot box and you vote yes, that yes means there will be funding for municipal offices,
Space.
municipal space in the West Street building. some form of municipal space in the West Street building.
Whether you decide at town meeting it's option B or option C.
And at town meeting, you will be presented with two options.
Yes.
Yeah.
An option which will have municipal offices and a COA and potential future building. Or just municipal offices and potential for a COA and future building.
The goal
Are they
is
gonna
to
have
get this.
price tags attached to each of those?
back.
We had price tags
We could
attached.
go in and try to tell someone to vote to do a debt
So-
exclusion, and don't give any kind of a ceiling to it.
Mr. Glessman, we've, in all of our meetings, we've had different things. Steve Nally has come and spoke at
We always have price tags,
numbers,
but at the
you know,
ballot,
different housing number. If your house is valued at 250, it's gonna be this. If your house is
I don't think that's what I meant. What
no,
I
you
meant
mean on the
was
ballot,
it-
on the ballot itself.
On the ballot, it's blank. A
So-
debt exclusion to take care of municipal projects.
So that's the
That's what
reason why.
So the people at that moment have to decide, are they willing to pay more taxes?
So that's
And they
why
don't
now-
know how much it's gonna be.
Right, so now we have to start informing the public of what that potential is going to be, whether that means having a mailing go out that says a yes vote means this, and it's gonna be this much money at town meeting that you can decide on. A no vote means no West Street building renovation, period. That information has to get out there somehow, and whether that's a, you know, a little yes, no that you get in the mail or that we hand out at the voting.
I mean, we've been here for 2 hours and then it's gonna go round and round, but what I can say for myself is I'll support that. Either, because I think to me, it's important that this makes it to the town fair to let people decide. These are two options, choose what you like to choose, if anything. If they come back saying, well, we're not choosing either, well, then sitting up in that chair, I gotta figure out another solution, I guess, with the board members.
But if you can support that option, how are you going to educate the public?
So we actually, at our last meeting, had brought up if the committee would be willing to do an informational video that can go on YouTube through GCAM that says, this is what option B is, this is what option C is. The ballot would be voting for either option B or C. You're just saying, yes, we want you to take it to town floor so we can decide on which option we want. So there's a lot of videos that other towns are doing out there, like for various issues that they have going on. And I think, because a lot of people aren't going to be able to make the informational meetings, whether it's sports, whether it's their job. But if we get it on YouTube and we push it through the various social media pages, through the Granby town meeting and such, I think that will help educate the people that are unable to come to the meeting.
So why would you have the committee do it and not the select board do it? Because
Because we know-
you're the ones that call the town meeting, and you're the ones that put it on the ballot.
Because the
So our
committee was
informational
charged
meetings-
with the options, and you guys are knowledgeable about the options. So really, you're just educating them on option B would include this, this, and this, and have your boards like you had at your informational meeting, where you walk them through what each space, what each option actually entails. You can abate it or not abate it. This is what you would be abating and doing windows with, and just walking them through the options. We don't have the knowledge of the options besides what you've told us. So we're gonna stumble on our words during the video as we're trying to explain what option B is and the soft costs and whether you could do the add alternatives and all that other stuff. We're not gonna have that information, you guys have that.
So are you gonna go on this video and say that you support this project with option B and C? Are you gonna go up there and say that? Do we have your backing in this video? Otherwise, it's just us talking again.
Yeah.
But it's an informational video.
Correct, but you want us
Okay.
to sell this project. Are you behind us?
You're talking to her, or talking to both of us.
Oh, sorry.
I just said,
Yeah. No, you're for the
I just said what I was,
Right.
I will support.
I mean, we can have this informational, all our informational sessions, do this video and say, we've met with the select board, and this is what they think is the best thing to do. Put it on the ballot, and then bring forth these two options that the committee has worked on. Option B says this, option C says that.
And here's where I stand from, sitting on the select board. The select board had the ability, if they wish to, rescind that completely.
Right.
Right? The select board did not. The select board said, no, we rescind this piece of it, but we're gonna move this piece forward for the ballot. So I think that, to me,
But people
Should
don't
say-
understand that.
well, to me, it says,
It's your decision,
It's,
let the people decide.
to me, that says, as a select board member, I'm moving it forward. Because if not, I could have voted to rescind it. And had a long discussion with the other two board members, going back and forth, and, because I wanted, my concern was, hey, can we get all this information out there in enough time to get it to the voters? Because the last thing I wanted is not to get enough information out there, and it failed. And then people say, well, you had your chance, we can bring it back again? And that's what someone said to me, how many times are you gonna bring it back? Do you get what you want? No.
We're giving you different options this time.
You know, so that's moving it forward was saying to me, saying that Crystal can speak if she.
Well, it's not really, are you doing it to get what you want? It's no, because what are our other options if this doesn't go through?
No, and I know that, Lynn, but I'm just telling you what people ask. Because people, that's what they feel. Well, you town floor voted it down. Why'd you take it off the ballot? The town floor voted it down. Why are you still pushing it? Because we need town offices. We need space.
Right, and I
The
guess,
solution isn't
and you're
that.
saying that to us, and we understand that, but that has to come from you to the public also. That's what the public's not seeing.
It's hearing right now. They're hearing me.
Well,
I don't,
But
I can't get out of the street corner for yelling at me.
yeah, but it's been 2 weeks since town meeting. So there's been a lot of misinformation going on.
Yeah.
And I,
And, you know, I know on the night when we met, it was discussed putting something out to clarify what we're doing at this point, meaning,
unfortunately, GCAM wasn't at our last meeting, and
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, because I think the select board members had a really
I forgot they were
good,
there. I thought
a
they
really
were.
good communication, conversation, to a point, debate back and forth, and everything, and I think a lot of information came out. Like I said, even for myself.
See, from my perspective, if I was sitting in your chair, I would be saying, this is, I would be saying whether I can't afford it or whether this is the best option going forward for the town. Right? This is what, you believe that you assemble a committee to do your work, right? We're an arm of the select board. We went out and did your work, did what we were charged with. We came back with an option, town voted it down. But going forward, I think the select board and the finance committee have to agree that this is the B or C or whatever combination we put together for that building is the best option forward. And you got to get behind it and say, this is, even though you don't want your taxes to go up personally, then vote the way you want. But you got to get up and say, this is the best option we have going forward, period.
I can get behind option C. Because it's a need. We need municipal offices, I can get behind that. I don't know for another $2 million, and I get it, it's only another $2 million. I don't know that I can add the COA, because it's not a need at that point, it's a want. We have a COA. So I can get behind an option C.
So we got a 50-50 split here.
and I hate to keep on asking this, but I have to clearly understand, is it B or C with abatement or not abatement? Because
You can't do without abatement
that's
because your
right.
ballot vote says to abate.
All 44,000 square feet,
Right,
right?
so
Yeah, it's gonna be with
you
the.
cannot use any option does not include full abatement. of the
Okay.
building.
So it will be the 4.2 that we're asking for
Yes.
a bond.
Yes.
And it would be for a full abatement of the 44,000 square feet with 12,000 square feet usable.
22,000 square feet municipal space.
I thought the gentleman just said that the COA and the gym and the rooms would be abated, but they would not be usable.
Correct.
Yes.
And
So it would be
option-
12,000 square feet.
22,000 square feet. That's what
That's
we
if we
put
go
on
to
the,
option B.
that's
No, no,
what
no.
we put on the ballot question.
option C means no COA moving in, but
Right.
prepping those rooms
Right.
and the cafeteria and the gym for future renovation. So you're still renovating 22,000?
Okay.
but you're gonna put a firewall up,
Okay.
so you
So
can.
it's
You're not
fully usable.
inhabiting
Right.
Okay.
22,000.
Will there be a door in that firewall?
You'll,
A little pickle court for you. Well, okay, so thank you for clarifying that. So it is full abatement now. You're split down the middle.
So that's what we are bringing forward though, correct?
B and C,
Correct.
and one,
Yeah, well, the town decide.
Decide. And like I said, if the town says no to both, and get some work out of us sitting up there.
if it's a no, it's a no, and then you have to go back to square one,
Figure it out.
Which.
and maybe you will bring it back again at some
Well,
point.
and again, it's frustrating to the people that are sitting up there at the select board. To the point, just saying, okay, if it gets voted down, all right, we know what's facing us in the future. We know we're not gonna have the annex building in the future. That's, you know, it's just what amount of time we have with that. Reality is the landlord could say, you know what, July 1st, we're done. Your lease is up, I'm done.
You know, we've talked about a
So-
lot of things here tonight. One thing that hasn't been mentioned, about our employees that serve us. Don't they deserve a better facility?
I agree.
to operate
I
out of?
agree. And I made the comment, if you said, what about this, what about this? Well, but what if the annex building burnt down? What will we do? What if this building burnt down? What will we do? We figure out a way, we find a way. Well, we gotta find a way. We gotta get ourselves there.
But that
The
has to be
annex going
said.
down, one thing you might do is move half the people into the old library and build a small building for the other half.
But then, but see, I totally,
You wouldn't be raising West Street building. You'd be filing a lot to put that building on.
because otherwise, to me is, here's a brand new Chevy, but you're paying Maserati price for 2 offices. That's how I see it, when you're like, I'm spending this much money for 2 offices. Yeah, I want a Maserati, but you're giving me a Chevy, but I'm paying the Maserati price. That's how I see it when you said 2 offices in this square footage
1,200. 1,200 square feet.
for 2, you know what I'm saying?
Point, John.
Just trying to.
It does accomplish
It gets turned down
what you said, yeah, it's over there.
for square foot.
It does, that does happen.
Spending it.
But again, is that reality for our future with Granby?
Now,
That's just what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It is an option, and I can say it's not an option, it is an option, but
I hope everybody understands that the role of the finance committee is much different from your roles, either in your roles for what you do for the town or in this purpose. And that, as I said, I believe that the whole finance committee likes the idea. That's different from what our responsibility is, just to point out fiscally what happens. And fiscally, what are the options that you might be thinking of as whether you're going to be in favor of or against.
But I think what Glenn's saying is fiscally, the alternative that we're suggesting to keep it under 5.6 million isn't really fiscally responsible for Granby because it's not, it's temporary. It's spending a lot of money for something that's only 1,200 square feet. Yes, it's using existing buildings that will have to be upgraded a little bit. So we're spending money, but we're spending money that is temporary.
Now, this entire, that portion of the conversation depends entirely upon how tied you are into keeping up West Street School as a building in town. If you think that the West Street School should be a building in town for whatever purposes, then you're gonna vote, or you're gonna wanna vote for whatever people bring up for vote, just so you can keep the West Street School. If you don't care at all about whether the West Street School stands, or if you don't care at all if we sell it for $1 to somebody and then let them do whatever it is they want to do to raise it and build something else in that spot, to refurbish the building themselves, want to sell it for $1 and get rid of it, then you're not spending anything of what was allocated at the town meeting. So that's what I'm saying is that these things are all intertwined, but they're not all just the question of, do we do this? It doesn't involve that. It's a much, much broader question. So, and the way you got it phrased, what I've been hearing is that a lot of people are tied into the idea that West Street School should be preserved for the town because it's got good bones.
Well, it's been 3 years of studies to prove that.
Yep. But that's what you're saying. That's basically, I think, how I hear this is being presented. And I'm saying a lot of people aren't gonna care about West Street.
Well, the other thing that hasn't been brought up is, as I said before, about the separation between public water and public sewer. The separations and Chris is working on the other ones to see what the occupancy of the building is going to be. But if you're ever gonna put everybody in one spot, the town doesn't have the property to do it unless you go on school property, because that's the only piece of property the town owns that's large enough to put a well on one corner and a septic system in another, which is what we have already.
Right.
A working septic system and a working well.
I don't know if anybody's gonna argue with that.
So, you know, if the town had deep pockets, I'd say, tear it down, let's build the Taj Mahal. But we don't. This is the least amount of money, whether we do B or C, and
Okay, see,
and it gives us a future down the road if the town has money 20 years from now or 10 years or 5 years from now to do something.
and that's the other separate issue in this whole problem. It's one issue of, do we want the West Street School there? And the other issue is, do we want or require all the town offices to be in the same building? And people are gonna have different opinions about those two things.
Yeah, we know that. We've heard.
The state has different opinions about it.
Yeah.
But this committee's worked pretty damn hard over the last 2.5 years and thinking out of the box, knowing that in the long run, this is the best option for maybe some future expansion. Maybe the schools need some more classrooms. We can put the offices at the phase 2 of this building, the backside, and open up more school space.
We can rent the backside.
There's a lot of different things that if we tear it down, it eliminates those options down the road. Eliminates that as an option down the road.
So we're gonna go ahead and have informational meetings explaining option B and C and answering any questions. We're gonna talk to GCAM, put something together to put out on GCAM. At town meeting, if it passes, at town meeting, someone from the select board needs to passionately say what you just said. You know, someone has to,
I have no problem saying that.
I mean, someone
I've
has
said
to,
it once, I'll say it
but
again.
someone has to speak up from the select board and say, this is why we need to do this project. Any other alternatives have been discussed, and they're temporary. And we have a long-term need.
Could you even at your next meeting, is it April 29th, your next select board meeting?
Yeah, on Tuesday.
Would you guys be able, or would you feel it's reasonable that you speak of the last meeting that was not taped? And just say how you went back and forth, debated, and
Kept it on the ballot, and why we
Correct.
kept it on the ballot. Yeah, we could do that.
that would certainly
We have a lot of meetings, but we can do it when we get to old business, because we have a lot of scheduled meetings already.
Well, we can do a quick recap, so people say, unfortunately, that the previous meeting wasn't,
Yeah, none of them were
videotape,
taped
but-
that week.
I know.
None
Yeah.
of the meetings.
so,
We'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So we have our first informational meeting on Tuesday at the Carnegie. Is that the 29th?
Yeah.
Tuesday the 29th, at the Carnegie at 6? I
think it's 6.
6 o'clock.
Okay.
So we'll have Kathy put it on the website.
Lynn, if you give me a list when you have one,
Well, we haven't met yet to decide the other
when you
days.
do that, and if there's someone that I can show up for, I'll show up.
What time is that?
6.
We're gonna try to space some time a little bit different too.
So this-
Maybe one night for the seniors, like 4
So like
o'clock or
4
something.
o'clock, so they can
Just
come
so-
up. And we tried 6:30 because we figured people will work, would be home by then. So
Could, the robocall. My question is, could you robocall and inform people these are going out, so if they want to? Or say, we have meetings coming out, you can go to GCAM, because there's some people like, it still boggles my mind the way we have communications out and everything in our website, and everything. They go, I didn't hear it. And I wasn't sure, is that feasible use of the robocall? to ask, to say, be advised, this is going out to, I didn't know if that's feasible or not.
I think it's because we're informing our residents of something that matters for our town. Whether you agree or disagree with it, we're informing them that this is taking place.
Well, it's that way they can look on the website, they can look on,
So we'll try to, as a committee, get those 4 dates together very quickly, so.
And Miss, just to also talk about the robocall, I've been on there, my number's on there. I just continue to re-up it. I still
Oh, yeah.
don't get the calls. I don't know why.
Yeah, people still come in and say
There's-
they're.
no, there's
I get a text, I get.
There's a glitch in the system or something.
all good.
Remember you told me? Yeah.
I get 2
I
calls,
don't know.
2 texts.
My husband gets the call, so I don't get the call.
Only because sometimes if you look
So-
on like the social media or the website, you might get 2,000 people. And you know, if you look at the numbers and stuff, 'cause I've been watching the numbers, who's in what group or who actually reads the paper, and I've been trying to actually pay attention to that so we can inform people.
Right.
That's still, if we can get 4,000 people aware of, unfortunately, that 1% or the percentage that we weren't able to reach, at least
Right.
their spouse or a significant other might get it.
Yeah.
Well, anybody watching this who wants to get on the code red, just that robocall they're talking about, GranbyPD.org, in the middle of the website says something about code red. Click on it, and it gives you prompts on how to
Sign up.
Sign up.
sign up for it.
I'll try it again.
It's over there.
That's hidden by the
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm good.
I'm good.
Does everybody feel good now?
Well, I'm not sure the parents committee's on board, but
It's Elaine.
you,
Do you,
But John, is that something you can bring up at the next meeting, whether or not? they-
Yeah, I'm gonna ask Lynn to draw up something for me that gives as much detail as possible about
For
options
finance.
B and C, and then we'll have a discussion about those. But I want to tell everybody, it's, our charge is a little different.
It is.
yeah,
Well, we get that, and I understand that. You're looking at financially, and while we're looking at for the future. Not saying not look at the future, but there's a cost involved. What's
well, we're still
Well,
working.
again, it's a choice. You give them the facts of the financial aspect of it. They've got the facts. We're informing them. You're informing them. Let them make their own decision.
Well, thank you.
Entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Well, I'll make a motion.
Second.
I will second that motion. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
we're all right.
All right.